The insidious presence of fentanyl means the idea of death isn't abstract, it's pervasive and real.
I've had so many people overdose in front of me that I've had to intervene.
Fortunately, Jordan was there with know-how and Narcan.
I can't count them all on one hand.
And so how many times do you think you've used it on friends or...
Narcan? Probably somewhere in the range of like 20 times, 15 or 20 times, and a combination of CPR and Narcan. Every time I would resuscitate somebody, even when the medics showed up, I don't know if they died after the paramedics got there.
Does that stay with you, that thought? You wonder?
I processed it a little better after the fact, but most of the times that I ended up successfully resuscitating somebody, afterwards I have an adrenaline dump. I go into mildly catatonic state. I shake real bad. It's the same kind of thing as like the fog of war. When things are crazy, things are going wrong, because there's a lot of pressure, because as human beings, we're not supposed to have the power of life and death in our hands.
Jordan's in recovery now. He doesn't use opioids. His story is a potent reminder of the fallout from America's opioid crisis. The lives lost, the trauma borne, the immense harm done over decades. Nationally, the trend in overdose deaths is down in the US, but more than 800,000 people perished in the years from 1999 to 2023. It's an immense death toll, and it's brought profound change, as one of Nevada's medical examiners, Dr. Laura Knight, reminds us.
Even on elderly folks who die, we always look to see if they are prescribed opioids. We look at their medical records to see if they have a history of drug abuse. There's no longer anyone that we would consider safe from a drug-related death.
That's all from the US and this assignment series, Drugs Overdose Hope. The producer was Tim Mansell, and the programme was expertly mixed by Hal Haynes. Penny Murphy is Assignment's editor.
That was Assignment from the BBC. I'm Saroja Coelho, and this is CBC Radio 1. Have a great day.
Good morning, Manitoba. You're listening to Information Radio on CBC Radio 1. I'm Corey Funk, in today for Marcy Marcusa. Good to be with you. It's a chilly start to the day today. We're looking at 0 right now at the Forks and -3 right now at the airport. So hopefully, like I did yesterday, I put the hose away on the side of the house, hoping that doesn't freeze. Hopefully it doesn't freeze for you. Let's say hello to the wonderful crew today helping put together today's show. We've got Abby Adeyemi behind the glass. He will be teching our show and directing this morning. As well, Darren Morash is on YouTube. You can check us out on the CBC Manitoba YouTube page. He'll be making us look good on YouTube this morning. As well, let's say hello to Heather Wells, who's in with a look at news headlines.
Good morning. Well, the arrest of 2 men for a double homicide in Lake Winnipeg cottage country does little to ease the grief of the father of one of the victims. The bodies of Sly Thiebert and Melissa Wilson were found in the arm of Victoria Beach in the early hours of June 20th. RCMP announced yesterday they have now charged 2 men with second-degree murder. Glenn Thiebert says the 2 arrests do not make up for the deaths of 2 people. A woman from Salmon BC has signed the first female-owned cosmetics deal with a Canadian men's sports organization. Missy McIntosh owns Miss Max Cosmetic and has signed a deal with the Winnipeg Blue Bombers. Her non-toxic eye black can also be used as face paint and makeup, and soon it'll be available to Bomber fans. We'll hear all about it in our next local news coming up at 6:30.
I think I might get it too to protect my eyes from the studio lights, Heather. What do you think?
I think I need it too. Let's do it.
Okay, good. We'll get on that. It'll look really good on YouTube, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, Heather.
Thank you.
That's Heather Wells at our CBC News desk. We will have a deeper interview on that at 6:10 with that makeup making mother from Seminar coming up at 6:10. Also, a new study published finds nearly 1 million Canadians are feeling climate anxiety so much that it's impacting their everyday life. We're going to hear more about what climate anxiety actually is and when worry becomes serious. That's all coming up this next half hour on Information Radio. We'll see you after World Report.
Q.
When Steve Martin isn't acting or doing stand-up or, being a comedy legend, he's performing bluegrass on the banjo. His latest project is an album released with the great banjo player Alison Brown. They'll both be here to talk about how they fell in love with the banjo and their new record.
When Alison and I started writing songs together, you start to get into a groove.
Q with Tom Power. This morning at 10:30 in Newfoundland and on CBC Listen or wherever you get your podcasts.
This is World Report. Good morning. I'm Marcia Young. Mark Carney is starting the work of selling next month's budget to Canadians. The Prime Minister spoke about it last night at an event at the University of Ottawa. He talked about what you could expect when the budget is unveiled November 4th. Janice McGregor is covering the story for us from Ottawa. And Janice, what did his speech tell us about what will be in the budget?
Marcia, old hands will tell you that one of the first things you look for in a budget is where the economic growth is coming from. And from Mark Carney last night, we heard a similar formula to what the Americans are trying right now. Import less, export more. The Prime Minister talked about how other countries make much more of their own stuff when it comes to what key industries need. He cited steel as a top example. And he repeated that Canada's new strategy for defense purchases is going to try a lot harder to shop at home too. But as much as this might disappoint international trading partners, Carney's also expecting that they're going to be willing at the same time to buy a lot more from Canada. Way more. He set a target of doubling non-U.S. exports over the next decade. That's probably impossible without huge gains in major Asian consumer markets like China, India. I'd expect to hear a lot more about this as Carney heads to Asia for a pair of key regional summits over the next week and a half. Last night's speech also signaled a shift in Liberal climate policy.
With a focus on results over objectives, on investments over prohibition, we will build sustainably.
And that suggests a future that's less about banning things outright or limiting production and appears to tell companies instead, put together a responsible business case and we'll consider it.
What happens if Canada's growth does not match Carney's plan, Janice?
There's the rub, because he's still maintaining his campaign pledge to bring government revenues in line with its operating expenses within 3 years. But without growth, without more taxes from that, he's going to have to raise other taxes, make even bigger spending cuts than are already contemplated, or punt on this budget balancing promise. As Carney put it,
we will have to do less of some of the things that we want to do so we can do more of what we must do to build a bigger and better Canada.
At times, this speech seemed to be preconditioning Canadians to accept that some of what Liberals promised in the past is not going to be possible now.
Thank you, Janice.
You're welcome.
The CBC's Janice McGregor in Ottawa. The NDP is beginning its rebuilding process. It lost official party status in the last federal election. Last night, the 5 people vying for the party's leadership had a chance to speak to Canadians. David Thurton has more.
The forum was light on policy, but the 5 leadership candidates each shared their vision for the NDP and how to fix it. Union leader Rob Ashton wants a party that's unapologetic about its message.
We're in a class war. It's the ruling class versus the working class. And we all have to understand that. And we have to be loud about it. And we got to rally the troops.
Over the years, parties like the NDP, according to leadership hopeful and Edmonton MP Heather McPherson, have pushed people away, excluding them. Her campaign, she says, is about building a bigger tent.
This party is for everyone. And it is not about changing our values. It's not about changing what we believe. It's about changing how we talk to people and where we talk to people.
Unlike the other candidates, Avi Lewis, a well-known TV presenter, did speak in detail about his policies, like a public option for grocery stores and cell phone providers.
And we feel that it's time for some straight talk, because we know why. We have every sector of our economy dominated by a handful of small players. 5 big banks, 5 big grocery chains, 3 phone companies giving us the highest prices and the worst customer service anywhere.
There's still time for NDP candidates to talk about their big ideas to remake the party. New Democrats won't choose a new leader until March. David Thurton, CBC News, Ottawa.
An organ in the Sistine Chapel marks a historic visit by King Charles. The king is the first head of the Church of England to pray publicly with the Pope in 500 years.
Let us pray. God our Father, you have created the heavens and the earth and made us in your own image.
Pope Leo XIII leads in prayer with Charles seated by his side. Such a prayer service has not happened since Henry VIII broke with Rome in 1534 to form the Church of England. The schism was over his desire to annul his marriage. Today's visit is considered a symbolic display of unity between the two churches. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky welcomes new U.S. sanctions against Russia at today's EU summit in Brussels.
American sanctions are also very important, and this is a good signal to other countries in the world to join the sanctions.
Washington is targeting Russia's two largest oil companies to pressure Moscow to negotiate a peace deal. The move comes after President Donald Trump declined to provide Ukraine with long-range Tomahawk missiles. Katie Nicholson reports.
The U.S. president made it clear once again, no Tomahawk missiles for Ukraine.
The only way a Tomahawk is going to be shot is if we shot it, and we're not going to do that.
Instead, the U.S. has launched another powerful weapon into the heart of the Russian economy, damaging sanctions on its largest two oil companies, Rosneft and Lukoil. NATO head Mark Rutte.
It's all about changing the calculus, making sure that Putin understands that the president's vision this weekend of having a ceasefire.
The EU and the UK welcomed the harsh economic measures on what they see as a truculent Russia. Stateside, Trump had long been under pressure by some in Congress to hit the country with tougher sanctions.
Russia's economy is already dropping, the ruble's dropping.
Senate Republican Mark Wayne Mullen backed the decision.
If you start putting the economic woes and start damaging their economy even farther, I believe this is what will bring Putin to the table. Other than that, nothing else seems to work.
Trump's shifting stance on the Russian leader, with whom he had become annoyed over the last few months, shifted again after a lengthy phone call last Thursday night. At the time, Trump agreed to meet Putin in Hungary, but yesterday confirmed that meeting is off, at least for now.
It didn't feel right to me. It didn't feel like we were going to get to the place we have to get, so I canceled it.
And for the moment, appears to be taking a dimmer view of his interactions with Putin.
Every time I speak with Vladimir, I have good conversations, and then they don't go anywhere.
Words may have failed, but it's hoped dire economic numbers induced by the sanctions will not. Katie Nicholson, CBC News, Toronto.
Russia is reacting this morning to the U.S. sanctions. The Foreign Ministry describes them as counterproductive to peace. But former President Dmitry Medvedev has stronger words. He calls the White House's decision an act of war against Russia. Medvedev is currently deputy chair of Russia's Security Council. A new report from Human Rights Watch is a warning about press freedom under Taliban rule in Afghanistan. The CBC's Chris Reyes has more.
I'm able to speak with my name, with my own identity. However, this is not the reality for my colleagues in Afghanistan.
Zara Nader is an Afghani journalist in exile from Edmonton. She covers human rights in Taliban-controlled Afghanistan for the outlet Zan Times.
The Taliban is actively looking for any journalist that is collaborating and working for exile media. And the Taliban have made this into a law that they are not supposed to be working with media in exile.
A new report from Human Rights Watch is sounding the alarm over that very issue. The group interviewed dozens of journalists in Afghanistan and those in exile. John Sifton contributed to the report.
They're facing Taliban abuses. The authorities have been routinely surveilling and censoring news outlets, and then they're even subjecting some journalists to arrest and torture and enforced disappearance.
Sifton says those journalists are the country's last best hope to expose other abuses. Since taking over in 2021, the Taliban has enforced authoritarian rule, cracking down on rights and freedoms, especially for women and girls.
Hundreds of Afghan journalists and media workers, against tremendous odds, are continuing to report the news. So it's absolutely essential that these reporters both inside and outside the country get supported.
Nader hopes her work will raise awareness about what's happening in the country.
The reason I'm doing this work is because I'm hopeful that the Taliban is not the future of Afghanistan, and we will pass these dark times.
More than 1,000 journalists left Afghanistan in 2021. Many of them continue to do their work in secret. Chris Reyes, CBC News, New York.
And that is the latest national and international news from World Report. News anytime at cbcnews.ca. I'm Marcia Young.
Good morning, Manitoba. You're listening to Information Radio here on CBC Radio 1. I'm Corey Funk, and today for Marcy Marcusa. It's a chilly one this morning, -5 right now at the airport. Warmer, though, at the Forks. It's 0 there. Coming up this hour on Information Radio, we're spending billions to make machines think. But with Canada being poised to join the data center boom, are we thinking enough about what happens if the AI bubble bursts? Tech columnist Francis Sims is going to join us to talk about that. Also, a new study published in Nature Mental Health finds nearly 1 million Canadians are feeling climate anxiety so much that it's impacting their everyday life. We're going to talk about that and how to live with climate anxiety. But first, what started as a mother-son project in a basement has made its way to the CFL. We're going to hear about how a makeup artist from Salmon Arm got involved with the Winnipeg Blue Bombers. That's coming up just ahead. But right now it's 6:11. Let's check in with Heather Wells with a look at news headlines.
Good morning. CBC has learned when wildfire season began this past May, the government was short dozens of firefighting positions. Documents obtained through Freedom of Information show 64 seasonal fire ranger jobs hadn't been filled during the week of May 12th. The Wildfire Division also had several vacancies in key management positions, and that was the week when out-of-control wildfires spread rapidly throughout the province. So we'll hear more on that. And a judge has tossed 2 legal challenges of Manitoba's decision to issue moose hunting licenses in some areas last year. Pimicikamak Cree Nation and the Manitoba Wildlife Federation both challenged the province's 75% license cut. That was a 75% license cut in parts of northern Manitoba. We'll hear why those decisions, the challengers, were tossed, coming up in our next local news, and what legal options may be left. I'll be back at 6:30.
Thank you very much, Heather.
Thank you.
That is Heather Wells at our CBC News desk. Let's check in now with Abby Adeyemi, who's got a look at our very chilly Thursday morning.
Yes, chilly start. You'd agree with me, Corey, but it's calm outside with that clear skies you have, but it's still going to be feeling chilly when you step out. The wind chill, we're looking at something in the range of -5 to -7. And talking about -5, temperatures already sitting around -5 at the airport this morning, and it's around near 0 downtown. Depending on where you are in the city, you might notice your range in between -5 and 0 this morning in the city. Skies are clear, a few clouds will roll in later. We warm up to that seasonal 7 degrees where we're supposed to be this time of the year in the afternoon, and then partly cloudy conditions later in the evening, and temperatures will drop back to around 0 overnight. Across board, we're looking at foggy conditions in Brandon now, so if you're driving, if you're on the road, take it easy. We're seeing -3 there. Dauphin is around -2, and Gimli is around -3. It's a crisp one in southern Manitoba this morning. However, we get to see some sunshine later. Temperatures for a lot of the regions, we'll see 10 degrees in some regions in the southern part of the province today. And up north, it's more cooler, and we're seeing cloud and foggy conditions there. Temperatures for the north would be warming up to about 5 degrees later, but for now, we're still seeing that range of just a bit above 0 for most regions up north. So right now, Winnipeg, we are at 0 at the Fox, -5 at the airport, and some people might check their phones and go, but it says -2. Yeah, that's the range.
Everyone's flocking to the Forks this morning to warm up.
And just something to note, on my way home yesterday, I did a bit of drive around, and you just need to notice, take into consideration Archibald at Provencher, that northbound 10 left turning lane, it's closed. It might, during rush hour traffic, just take that into consideration if you're heading out this morning.
Thank you very much, Abby. as for everything else, if you do see something going on the commuter line, actually, Abby will be answering the line this morning and passing it along. You can give us a call. Don't see any issues yet, but if there is something going on, you can give them a call, 204-788-3093. Well, if you like a little sparkle with your football, this next story is for you. It's about how a makeup artist from Salmon Arm, BC, worked with her sports-playing son to sign a contract with the Winnipeg Blue Bombers. It comes from CBC's Jacqueline Gelino.
What started as a mother-son passion project in a basement in Salmon Arm has made it to the CFL. Missy McIntosh is the founder of Miss Mac Cosmetics, and now she's leaving her mark on Canadian football with a new product for players and fans. A non-toxic eye black that can be used as face paint and makeup.
I actually designed it with my son, who is now 14 and a half, out of a passion project after losing my dad. I wouldn't actually let Evan wear eye black for many years because I knew the ingredients that were in them. And during the sort of grieving process, I was like, hey, Evan, do you want to create an eye black? Essentially, it's like a black dense lipstick. We have the manufacturing. And he's like, yeah, let's do it.
Eye black is worn on players' cheeks to prevent eye glare from the sun or stadium lights.
So like you can, like if the fly ball's coming in, you can like track the ball better.
Since she already had the resources available to create an eye black, Missy and her son Evan got to work. After creating a sun-reflecting product that Evan and his teammates liked, they also created a sweat-proof glitter that sticks to the eye black for a bit of added sparkle. Evan and his teammates use the glitter when they want an edge.
There's a tradition, kind of.
The various colors can be used as eye black, face paint, and makeup. Together, Evan and his mom presented the product on Dragon's Den.
I'm Evan McIntosh. And I'm Missy McIntosh. We're here today to seek $100,000 for 20% of my business.
And later caught the eye of sporting goods stores and professional athletes and teams, including the Winnipeg Blue Bombers.
It's now just added to the game, and this product is something now for the players that they can use as well.
Wade Miller, president of the Blue Bombers, says in addition to the eye black's practical use, it's become a personal statement, with players using it like war paint to feel confident on the field and fans using it to connect with the athletes.
Kind of made it their own, and it's their own unique look, and it may be all over their face, or it may be only on one side under one eye.
Now, Miss Mac has signed the first ever partnership between a cosmetics company and the CFL. The product is already being worn by CFL players, but now, packaged in the Grit Kit, it will be unveiled to fans by the Winnipeg Blue Bombers at the Grey Cup Festival in November. Jacqueline Gelino, CBC News, Salmon Arm.
Wow. Thanks to Jacqueline Gelino for that story. And by the way, if you're wondering, the Dragons on Dragon's Den did not actually end up investing in the company. But as you heard, this hasn't held Missy McIntosh back.
North of North is in fashion, literally. CBC and the WAG are partnering to present Crafted on the Catwalk November 4th, a fashion show featuring cast members of the breakout comedy displaying designer clothes from Manitoba and the North. Then shop for fine handmade goods at Crafted Show and Sale November 7th to 9th. Visit cbc.ca/Manitoba/community for more, including an exclusive North of North screening and meet and greet.
I don't know about you, but I am a big fan of North and North. I watched it. I laughed. I even cried a little bit. Definitely worth checking out if you're in Winnipeg for that. Well, we got time for a little bit of music here on Information Radio, and Kylie V is a singer-songwriter to watch. She's based in BC, but she's not quite folk. She's not quite indie, but she kind of scratches both itches with her work. Here's a new one from her. It's called Distance.
An innocuous state, a veritable household pet. Something he took with him when he left. I've got a problem with authority figures. You're omnipotent, you're grinning in the mirror. And I was
That's Kylie V with her song Distance. Well, still to come here on Information Radio. Stay tuned at 6:40. We're going to be chatting with Dr. Anna Banerjee about travel preparedness, speaking of going a distance. If you're looking to take a holiday over the holidays, so stay tuned for that, how to make sure that you are all prepared to make sure you don't get a disease while you're out away having a holiday. So look good. Stay tuned for that. But right now, though, here on Information Radio, it is 6:22. I'm Corey Funk, sitting in today for Marcy Marcusa. And with record heat and wildfires becoming more frequent, people are feeling a different kind of stress. It's called climate anxiety. A new national study finds nearly 1 million Canadians feel it so strongly that it's starting to affect their sleep and focus. Researchers say it's most common among young people, women, and northern communities. And for a closer look, we've reached Sarah Kennel. She's the Vice President of Policy Partnerships and Advancement at the Canadian Mental Health Association. I spoke with her this morning at 6.
Good morning.
So to start off, can you just tell us a bit about what climate anxiety actually is and how you define it?
Yeah, climate change is a term that we use to describe the feelings that we experience in relation to climate change. It isn't a clinical diagnosis, but it's real for many people. As we've seen through this research, certain populations are particularly at risk of experiencing it. It can relate to feelings of nervousness, fear, worry, sometimes despair, and occur among people who have either witnessed or experienced a climate-related disaster themselves personally, or they've seen it play out in the news or been exposed to it indirectly.
So I think we all, might worry about climate change time to time here and there. But at what point does, worrying about climate change become something more serious and become that, general climate anxiety?
Yeah, it's normal to have, feelings that are in the face of these really major traumatic events. The important thing is that we're recognizing the difference between symptoms that are relatively normal, so mild to moderate levels of, frustration or anger and sadness. And then when they start to interrupt our day-to-day activities, that's when we know we have a more serious problem. So if you're experiencing disruptions in sleep, loss of social connection, loss of appetite, really reluctance to engage in regular day-to-day activities through work or school, overwhelming feelings of sadness or anger or frustration, those can really start to become more serious, and that's when you should reach out for help.
So yeah, tell me a little bit more. Like you're saying, they're just impacting their day-to-day lives, but how do climate worries actually impact big life choices that some people are making? Like say having kids or where to live.
Yeah, we're just starting to understand the connection between climate change and how it influences those big life decisions here in Canada. We know that a study in 2023 found that 40% of people between the ages of 16 and 25 reported hesitation about having kids due to climate change. That's a significant portion of the population, and we know also that that same age group feels a high level of stress because of economic uncertainty and housing affordability. So these things are all connected. The research is disparate across the country, but we know increasingly that young people are really making decisions around where to live based on climate change and trends because the increased frequency of climate-related disasters, whether they be wildfires or the smoke that enters more urban environments, floods, droughts, heat waves, these are all factoring increasingly into where we live in this country.
So what can people do to ease the stress of worrying about climate change?
Yeah, there are many things that we can do to build our resiliency in the face of climate change. And unfortunately, we know that this is something that we'll have to increasingly be prepared for as years go on. And we see these disasters increasingly occur across the country. So there are things that we can do that include being prepared. That really helps us regain a sense of control and purpose. So having a plan in your household about what to do if and when a disaster strikes. Staying informed of what's happening in your community, having access to evidence-based information is really important, but also ensuring that we're taking breaks from social media and the news when it becomes a little bit too much to handle. Talking about it in community and giving back through volunteer work is another great way for us to reduce some of the potentially negative emotions that come with climate change and climate anxiety. So volunteering for your local environmental center or climate justice initiative are great ways to reconnect with community and help manage some of those feelings. Connecting with nature. We're so lucky in Canada to have access to the outdoor space and green space that we do. That can be a really important way for us to really value the environment that we do have and learn how to protect and support it. And then, of course, reaching out for support when emotions become more serious in nature.
I know outside of the home too, that you go about in the world, and it could be tougher to control than when you're at home or with your family. So, what about schools or workplaces? What can they do to support people who are struggling with climate anxiety?
Yeah, we spend so much time at school and work, and it's important for us to be supported in those spaces as we navigate some of these feelings. So for younger kids, research out of the UK showed us that kids aged 7 to 11 are more worried about climate change than they are their homework. So this is really impacting younger kids in particular. Ensuring that we provide them with accurate information, that we recognize and acknowledge that their feelings are real and that it's okay to talk about them. For older kids, ensuring that they have access to supports and information that really ensures that they are aware and informed of what's going on, creating space to normalize negative feelings around frustration, anger, and sadness. And then for workplaces, really ensuring that we're creating psychologically healthy environments through access to mental health supports, employee assistance programs, those types of things, and coming together as a workplace to give back to community.
Well, Sarah, thank you for your time this morning. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
That's Sarah Kennel. She's Vice President of Policy Partnerships and Advancement at the Canadian Mental Health Association.
There are many people who bring success, innovation, accomplishment, and charity to our community. We'd like you to help us meet some of the best. CBC Future 40 will honor 10 Manitobans under 40 making a difference. Help us discover the inspiring people in our province by nominating a shining star in your community today. For details, visit cbc.ca/future40mb.
6:29 right now, and coming up this next half hour on Information Radio, we are spending billions to make machines think. But with Canada being poised to join the data center boom, are we thinking enough about what happens if the AI bubble bursts? Tech columnist Francis Sims is going to join us at 6:50. But also just ahead this half hour coming up, the Prime Minister last night in his pre-budget address promising to double non-U.S. exports over the next decade. We're going to talk about that. Also, good news and bad news for Tesla. We're going to dive into all that in your CBC Business Report. That's all coming up after your CBC Winnipeg News.
This is CBC News. Good morning. I'm Heather Wells. In a frosty Winnipeg, we're at 0 downtown. It's -5 if you're out at the airport. But becoming a mix of sun and clouds in Winnipeg this morning. So more sun than yesterday. Not more heat, though. A high, again, of 7. CBC has learned 1 in 4 positions within the wildfire division were vacant when wildfire season started this past May. A further 64 seasonal fire ranger positions also had not been filled. That's according to information obtained through Freedom of Information laws. The documents also show when wildfires began spreading across the province in the week of May 12th, several key fire management positions were vacant. Natural Resources Minister Ian Bushy says they are dedicated to recruiting for the next season, so there are no vacancies.
The ultimate goal is to have them all filled. And really that's the goal, and that's the long-term goal, and also it's the short-term goal. We all should be looking to improve that each and every day.
The Union for Fire Ranges says recruitment is difficult because Manitoba pays some of the lowest wages across the country. The arrests of 2 men linked to a double homicide in Lake Winnipeg Cottage Country has not eased the grief of the father of one of the victims. Sly Thiebert and Melissa Wilson were found dead in the RM of Victoria Beach in the early hours of June 20th. Glenn Thiebert says those arrests won't bring back either of the victims. He describes his son as a commercial fisherman with the personality of a big teddy bear.
For the most part, he was a happy-go-lucky guy. Loved to joke around with people. He was unfiltered. If he had an argument with you, he'd tell you. But he wouldn't raise a hand to you.
RCMP arrested Nathaniel Moore Harrison in Nova Scotia and Mitchell Johansson in BC. Both men are charged with second-degree murder. The sister of a woman who was struck and killed by a police vehicle last year in a city park says she wants her sister to be remembered for the kind of person she was, not for the tragic way she died. Tammy Bateman was hit by an unmarked police vehicle in September of 2024 at an encampment at Fort Rouge Park while officers were transporting another person back to the encampment. This week, Manitoba's Independent Investigation Unit says it is not recommending charges against the officer who was driving. Lori Bateman is Tammy's sister.
She was a kind-hearted person. She was a mother and a sister and a daughter, and she's going to be extremely, extremely missed. She's missed every day. Every time we think about or speak her name, there's tears to our eyes.
Lori says she and her family are angry with the decision to not recommend charges and will seek legal options to get justice for Tammy. Well, as Manitoba aims to attract more U.S. doctors, a former American physician is still glad she brought her expertise to this side of the border. Dr. Allison Carlton came to Canada in 2017 to work as a family doctor in Winnipeg. She found beauty in the outdoors and says she prefers working in a universal healthcare system. Carlton says she left Iowa with her wife for financial and personal reasons, and they have given up their American citizenship.
I have family down in the States now, and they understand that it's not safe for me to be down there as a gay woman. And and I just can't wait to get my daughter and my wife's daughter to see the light and come on up too.
Manitoba has been ramping up recruitment since Donald Trump was elected. The province is currently working on recruiting around 27 doctors south of the border. Officials have already hired 6 physicians from the U.S. this year. Prime Minister Mark Carney is giving a preview of the next federal budget. In a speech last night at the University of Ottawa, Carney warns government spending cuts will be announced on November 4th. He says the government will reduce wasteful spending and balance the deficit within 3 years by doing more with less. Carney vows to double Canada's non-U.S. exports in the next decade to buffer against our reliance on American trade. And he's also trying to prepare Canadians for tough economic times ahead.
And to be clear, we won't transform our economy easily or in a few months. It will take some sacrifices, and it will take some time.
You can hear more what the Prime Minister had to say coming up on World Report at 7. A judge has tossed 2 legal challenges of Manitoba's decision to issue moose hunting licenses in some areas last year. Pimicikamat Cree Nation and the Manitoba Wildlife Federation both challenged the province's 75% license cuts in parts of northern Manitoba. Manitoba Court of King's Bench Justice Brian Bowman dismissed both applications, saying the decision was imperfect but justifiable. Byron Williams is the lawyer for Pimicikamat, and he says the community is back to square one.
From Pimicikamat's perspective, Manitoba is not protecting those moose. Manitoba is not keeping its promises. So they're back where they were a year ago, trying to figure out the quickest way to protect these populations and to protect their rights.
The Wildlife Federation says it plans to appeal the decision. The owner of a small makeup company in Salmon Arm, BC, has signed a contract with the Winnipeg Blue Bombers. Miss Mac Cosmetics will be supplying Bomber players and fans with non-toxic eye black that can also be used as face paint and makeup. Owner Missy McIntosh says she initially designed it for her 14-year-old son.
I wouldn't actually let Evan wear eye black for many years because I knew the ingredients that were in them. I was like, hey, Evan, do you want to create an eye black? Essentially, it's like a black death lipstick. We have the manufacturing. And he's like, yeah, let's do it.
The gameplay eye black, already worn by Bomber players, will be unveiled to fans at the Grey Cup Festival in Winnipeg next month. You can find more Manitoba news at cbc.ca/Manitoba.
Thank you very much, Heather.
Thank you.
That is Heather Wells at our CBC News desk. 6:36 right now. You're listening to Information Radio here on CBC Radio 1. I'm Corey Funk, sitting in today from Marcy Marcusa. And Abby Adeyemi is behind the glass, and he's got a look at your very chilly
Corey, I
forecast this morning.
mentioned Jack Frost yesterday, and I woke up this morning. I had to spend like a few minutes before, defrosting and the windshield.
I really,
moving.
this was the first morning I could really see my breath when I walked outside.
And then I tried, stepping on the grass. I may notice some crickets on the grass this
Yep.
morning. So it's a bit frosty start across much of southern Manitoba and even into the north this morning. Clear conditions we're enjoying in the Scouts and the southern part of the province. Sunshine on its way. That would mix with a few clouds as we get into the day. Now across the province, we're seeing this crisp fall morning. Some areas seeing fog patches lifting through the morning. Winnipeg right now, it is clear, sitting between -5 degrees at the airport and 0 downtown. Depending on where you are, you will notice those. That's the range you will get, and it's feeling close to -6 with the wind chill factored in. We warm up to 7 degrees later today, and then tonight we're going to dip to around 0 before turning sunny tomorrow. In the Pembina Valley region, from Morden, Winkler, Altoona, Morris down to the U.S. border, we're looking at -2s and -3s in that area. The wind chill makes it feel close to -6. We spotted fog there. That's lifting as you get into the morning, and then we'll see your temperature climb to about 8 degrees later. Also, you cool to about -1 later overnight. In the Westman region, fog around Brandon towards Nipawin. Our temperature starts around -3 this morning. We will see these cloudy, foggy conditions lift as you get into the morning. Then some cloudy conditions along with sunshine later in the day. You warm up to 10 degrees for folks around Brandon. In the Parkland region, from Dauphin through Russell all the way towards Roblin, we're looking at -4 this morning. Misty conditions we're seeing. This morning fog will lift, and then it's going to give away to a mix of sun and clouds. That should clear as you get close to midday with calm winds. Highs will be around 10 degrees for the Parkland region. In the Interlake region, good morning to our friends in Gimli. We're looking at a -3 there this morning. Light northwest winds you're getting this morning. A mix of sun and clouds on its way. You warm up to about 7 degrees today, and then you're going to be dropping to below 0 overnight. But some sunshine returns on Friday for folks in that part of the province. Now we move to the powerful influence surrounding regions. We're looking at 2 degrees, expecting a mix of sun and clouds with light drizzle in a few spots today. We woke up with a few fog patches that should fade as you get into the morning, and we warm up to 7 degrees for that part of the province with calm conditions. Thompson and nearby also around 2 degrees. Cloudy skies you're seeing right now. A few chances of flurries this morning. You spotted fog there. That should clear by mid-morning. You warm up to 4 degrees for folks in Thompson. Now further north in Churchill and the York region, sitting around 0 right now. We see light snow in that part of the province. That should give away to a mix of sun and clouds later, and then a return of slim chance of flurries later in the day with light breeze. You only warm up to +2 for folks in Churchill. So across board, it's more like crisp and frosty to wake up this Thursday morning, but sunshine on its way into the weekend, Corey.
Thank you very much, Abby.
Thank you.
That's Abby Adeyemi, keeping an eye on your weather. As for traffic, all morning there's going to be a problem at Main and York. Emergency crews have closed northbound curb and middle lanes on Main Street at York, and all lanes of westbound York Avenue approaching Main are closed due to traffic. So northbound traffic is being rerouted from Main onto York, and if you're going westbound on York, you are going to want to find another way to get to Main. You can't go down there. We're going to be looking into this throughout the morning about what's going on at that corner. I'll have more details throughout the morning. But if you do have any details of what you're seeing there or anywhere else across the city, the province, on the roads, on the bike lanes, the trails, give me a call. Abby will be answering this morning. You can give us a call on the CBC commuter line. That number, 204-788-3093. Right now, though, let's check in with Hallie Cottonham, who's here with the Business Report. Good morning.
I'm super impressed, Corey. You are not only Marcy, but you are Corey, too. You are doing two things today.
I'm channeling my inner Marcy this morning, but still trying to keep my Corey-ness as well. Yes.
Indeed.
So last night, the Prime Minister promising to double non-U.S. exports over the next decade. So tell us what else is he saying?
That the fall budget that everyone's talking about is going to spur unseen levels of private sector investment. He says we can no longer rely on the U.S. as the trading partner after it hit us with tariffs at levels not seen since the Great Depression.
The jobs of workers in our industries most affected by the U.S. tariffs in autos, in steel, in lumber are under threat. And our businesses are holding back investments restrained by the pall of uncertainty that's hanging over all of us.
He says Canada is working to re-energize relations and trade with India and China, but he says that trade transformation will take time. And as Heather reported in her newscast, it won't come without sacrifices. Now, Carney's comments came on the same day as yet another vehicle manufacturer cut jobs in Canada. We've talked about job losses at GM and Stellantis. Now a company called PACCAR that makes Kenworth and Peterbilt trucks. PACCAR is laying off 300 workers from its plant in Sainte-Thérèse near Montreal. This is ahead of a 25% import tariff on commercial trucks that kicks in November 1st, Corey. PACCAR's plants in Texas, Ohio, and Washington will take over that production and avoid those tariffs on trucks built outside the U.S.
Also, so there's good news and bad news at Tesla. So what's going on there?
Yeah, let's start with the good news. It sold a record number of cars in the last quarter, in part perhaps because people forgave or forgot about their boycott of Elon Musk, or more likely as they raced to take advantage of these expiring EV incentives. So revenues at Tesla were up 12% to $28 billion. The bad news is that at the same time, Tesla's costs ballooned, including tariffs on imported parts that cost more than $400 million in the quarter. It also introduced a cheaper base model of Tesla with tighter margins. So overall profits down 37% compared to a year earlier. Third quarter earnings fell to $1.4 billion. This is worse than analysts had expected. So Tesla shares fell almost 4% in overnight trading.
So also, of course, tomorrow night, big game one of the World Series. But many Jays fans who might have hoped to score tickets are kind of out of luck. And now politicians and police are weighing in. So what's going on?
Well, you probably heard of or even know people who tried to get tickets only to find that the face value ones had already been snapped up and put up for resale at sky-high prices. Here's an example. A disappointed dad who had hoped to bring his kids to the game.
To think that people from who knows where bought these tickets and just jacked them up immediately, it's just so disheartening. To me, it's just wondering how can that system be more fair to people who are real fans?
So, I mean, of course, people are happy about the Jays in the World Series, but they're upset that they can't be there in person unless they shell out thousands. Now, Ontario's Premier, Doug Ford, is getting an earful about this, and he's reacting.
My personal opinion, I got to talk to the whole team, but they're gouging the people. When you have one player in the market that controls the tickets, that's not right for the people.
For its part, Ticketmaster says it's not setting these resale prices. It says it's the numerous small sellers who lucked into tickets and are now seeking to make a profit. And meanwhile, police are weighing in as well, warning that fraudsters are going to try to sell counterfeit or duplicate tickets. And just one more little tidbit, say you're a Raptors fan or a Leafs fan, they are both moving their games earlier so that basketball and hockey fans don't miss out on the World Series games. And they're also going to invite folks to stick around afterwards because the Jays game one of the World Series, is going to be broadcast on the Jumbotron, you know, the big video screen in the Scotiabank Arena so that people can stick around and watch the baseball game surrounded by hockey and basketball fans.
That's amazing. And
Yeah.
they can also be upset that they couldn't get actually tickets for in person altogether.
Well, that's it. Although, sure, they've shelled out for those Leafs tickets, too.
Yes, that is true. That is true. Well, thank you very much, Hallie.
Okay, thanks, Corey.
That's Hallie Cottenham with your business news. Well, up next on Information Radio, we have our weekly medical column. Host Marcy Marcusa spoke to Dr. Anna Banerjee yesterday.
With colder temperatures and winter weather edging in, you might be planning a warm trip abroad. I got to start that again because we were With colder temperatures and winter weather edging in, you might be planning a warm trip abroad, but don't. With colder temperatures and winter weather edging in, you might be planning a warm trip abroad. I got to start that again because we were in tunnel 1. With colder temperatures and winter weather edging in, you might be planning a warm trip abroad. But don't let flu season or any other number of ailments catch you off guard. Getting sick while traveling really kills the fun, and it also can be dangerous. For some expert advice on our medical column today, Dr. Anna Banerjee joins us via Zoom. She is a pediatric infectious disease specialist at the University of Toronto's Temerty Faculty of Medicine. Hi there.
Hi.
So, as a tropical disease specialist, which you are, what kinds of cases do you see most often?
I see lots of diarrhea, rashes, parasites. I see people coming back with fevers, and it could be something like a cold or COVID, all the way to malaria, dengue, typhoid. So I see some seriously ill people as well.
So, given all of that, such a big list and range, what would you say around what common vaccines people might consider looking into before they head off to travel?
Well, I think it's really important to get your primary series up to date, including measles, mumps, rubella, chickenpox, and then diphtheria, tetanus, pertussis, polio. So just to make sure that that is up to date. Then people can consider COVID and influenza, depending on where they're going to, because you may be in crowded places when you're traveling. I think that every adult or every person should have hepatitis B vaccine. And so that's something to consider, not just for the trip, but just for life. And also hepatitis A vaccine is a good vaccine to have. One dose now and a booster dose can give you lifelong immunity. So those are really good vaccines to consider. And then typhoid, if you're going to rural areas for a couple of weeks, you're going to be exposed to contaminated water. That's something that to consider. Now, then there's a whole series of vaccines if you're going to under-resourced parts of the world, or you're traveling for a long time, or you're going to certain areas, like, for example, Japanese bee encephalitis, rabies, yellow fever. And for a lot of those vaccines, you really should go to a travel clinic and get good advice.
How else can people protect themselves from getting sick while traveling? What else would you suggest people think about?
I think one of the most important things is to get travel insurance, because if you get sick and you need to be medevaced out, it can be extremely expensive. So that's something I would recommend for everyone. And so you think again, where are you going to? If you're traveling to a malarious area, you need malaria prophylaxis. And so what other illnesses are there? For example, mosquito-borne diseases, chikungunya, dengue, Zika. So you need really good insect repellent. It's important that you have boiled water or bottled water. Be careful with the ice, because unless you know where the source is, that it's actually bottled water or boiled water or filtered water. Avoid street food unless you know it's been boiling hot, because you don't want to eat anything that's been sitting around for a long time. Avoid any fruits or vegetables that you can't take off the skin. Don't walk barefooted in places where there are cats and dogs and on the beach, or where there's poor sanitation. And don't swim in freshwater lakes in places like Africa and parts of Asia and South America.
Research before you go is what I'm hearing, to try to understand all these things, because they're so specific to region. If you're traveling and think something is wrong, if something's, gone wrong, what do you suggest people do?
It depends on how sick they are. If it's just a cold, then do some supportive care. But if you have a fever in a malarious area, you need to go right away to get medical help. Or you have, again, persistent fever, recurrent vomiting, diarrhea, you're becoming dehydrated, you have lethargy, you have blood in your stools, anything like that, you need to have immediate help.
Just before you go this morning, because there's so much advice here, is there a checklist? Like what makes the top things on your checklist to bring on a trip just in case?
Well, again, travel insurance, but insect repellent, sunscreen, hats, sunglasses, and then your prescription medications. You can bring things like ibuprofen, Advil, Tylenol, antihistamines. You may bring Gravol, Imodium, those kinds of things. A lot of these things you can buy overseas, but you may want to have it in your little kit.
And just before you go this morning, I do have one more question I wanted to add. I'm wondering if you're seeing more of this or not. We certainly have been reporting on all kinds of different diseases and then emerging diseases in the world. In your own practice, are you seeing more people that are getting sick when they're traveling?
we're still seeing a lot of people getting sick with all kinds of things. What I am seeing that gets now under recognized is we're seeing a lot of people coming back with COVID. And so, again, you may want to get your COVID booster because when you're in a closed place like an airport or a plane, and there are viruses circulating, you're at risk. So people don't want to think about it anymore, but it's still out there.
Thanks very much for the medical column this week. Appreciate it.
My pleasure. Thank you.
That's Dr. Anna Banerjee. She's a pediatric infectious disease specialist at the University of Toronto's Timetry Faculty of Medicine. She was speaking with CBC's Marcy Marcusa yesterday. Well, next here on Information Radio, tech companies and investors are pouring billions into building massive AI data centers. A number of those are popping up across Canada, mainly in Ontario. There's none in Manitoba yet, but these centers come with a significant environmental footprint, and it's raising concerns. Regulation to protect energy and water resources is lagging behind. And Francis Sims covers tech issues for us. And good morning to you.
Good morning. Thanks for having me.
So why are we seeing this level of investment in data centers right now?
It all comes down to artificial intelligence. So these tech companies have promised investors that if you give me only $1 billion, I will build this giant data center for you. And inside that data center really are just racks of computers, no different than the computers you have at home, maybe a little fancier and higher power. And what they say is that if you give me all this money and I build this giant data center, then we're going to be the first company to create what we call superintelligence. And superintelligence is that moment that these tech companies have promised where AI will become smarter than humans in every single way. And what that means is that it'll do things like solve cancer, solve climate change, and make these investors gajillions of dollars. And so they've convinced the investors that the best way to do it is to jam as many computers in these warehouses for as much money as possible. And they're doing it all over the world, and they've run out of space in the United States, which is why they're knocking on our door.
And what are we like? How much money are we talking about here? Like, how expensive are these data centers to build?
Yeah, so your computer at home maybe is like $500 to $2,000 if you buy a laptop, right? Depending on which kind you buy, maybe a little more, maybe a little less. A traditional server or computer in a data center might be about $20,000, so 10 times that. And that would be the kind of server that you'd run Netflix off of, or maybe, you'd have your Google Photos on there, or Amazon Photos, or your files. That's traditionally what it's cost. The AI servers, though, have these high-end processors. Actually have these gaming processing units that gamers have been using for a while, but really high-end. Those things cost or start at $200,000.
Wow!
And so you can imagine like racks of these things, thousands of them. Well, you can get, I know it seems enormous, but you can get to the point where they're spending $1 billion on building a data center. And they predict that there's going to be about $200 billion around the world spent on building these data centers this year alone.
So why Canada for these data centers?
Well, we're going to win the World Series, so they want to be with winners. I hope. They're going to, we have power, a lot of power, especially in southern Canada, that's affordable. So in North Virginia, where they have over 40 data centers, the power grid is basically about to fail, right? It's fluctuating. People are getting brownouts, blackouts. Crazy things are happening because there's too much load. And so they're looking to, the neighbors to the north as an option. Also, we have a lot of clean water and cool climate. And the water is important because if you do a ChatGPT email, maybe a small email, and you iterate it a few times, or that first draft of an essay if you're a student, the amount of water, and this is staggering, needed to cool the servers doing that is about half a liter.
Wow.
Right? Because when you do AI, what happens is it's comparing against data points, maybe 1 million data points across many different servers. Those computers, like your computers at home, heat up and they need to be cooled. And so what they traditionally do is they run the water in pipes next to the servers, just like a radiator at home, and it cools those servers down. Half a liter for ChatGPT email, and think about how many of those are being done at the same time.
Wow.
So that's staggering amount of water. And they like Canada because Canada's cooler. Maybe they can spend less money and water on cooling these data centers if they're doing it in the middle of winter in Winnipeg.
Right. So I know we don't. I just look. We don't have any in Manitoba at this point yet. But with all that, we do have lots of water and we do have hydro here. What could that mean for Canadians if it came in the last minute or so here that we've got with you?
Yeah, so what they're promising these communities, and they're knocking on doors in Ontario, all over rural Ontario, because there's nuclear here. Eventually, there will be lots of power in Winnipeg, in Manitoba, we hope. What that means is they're promising jobs, right? It's about 1,000 people they'll hire to build the data center, and then they'll employ between 60 and 80 people on an ongoing basis. So if you're a small rural community, that could be a big boon. But there's a cost long term that they're not talking about, and that's what governments need to think about. In Ontario, they're passing a new bill that says we need to look at every project seriously across the environment, the economy, what the impact is to the community. And I think we're going to start to see that across the country as these people knock on everybody's door.
Well, Francis, thanks for your time this morning. Really appreciate it.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
That is Francis Sims. He's an Associate Dean of the Faculty of Applied Sciences and Technology at Humber Polytechnic. 6:58 right now. Let's take a look at news headlines with Heather Wells.
Good morning. Well, the arrest of 2 men for a double homicide in Lake Winnipeg Cottage Country does little to ease the grief of the father of one of the victims. RCMP announced the arrest yesterday in the murders of Sly Thiebert and Melissa Wilson. The father of Thiebert says the arrests don't make up for the deaths of 2 people. A former American physician says convincing others in the U.S. to make the move to Canada could be as simple as letting them know they're needed. Dr. Allison Carlton left Iowa and came to Canada with her wife in 2017 to work as a family doctor in Winnipeg OSIS. We'll hear from her in our next local news coming up at 7:30.
Thank you very much, Heather. Maine and York emergency crews have closed northbound, middle, and curb lanes at York on Main Street, and westbound York completely closed right now due to an emergency in that area. If you have details, 204-788-3093. Stay tuned this next hour on Information Radio after a local fisherman garnered attention for catching a once rare fish. It's raising questions about the health of Manitoba rivers and our fish populations. We're going to chat with someone from the province about how healthy the sturgeon population is after someone caught one near the Forks. That's coming up after World Report. Stay tuned.
On the current.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0, liftoff.
The Artemis II mission marks the first time in more than 50 years that humans will travel around the moon. It is an historic step toward living and working in deep space. 4 astronauts will be part of that mission. One of them is Canadian Jeremy Hansen. He's coming up on The Current. The Current with Matt Galloway. This morning at 8:37, 9:07 in Newfoundland, and on the CBC Listen app.
This is World Report. Good morning. I'm Marcia Young. Prime Minister Mark Carney is trying to get Canadians to buy into his upcoming budget. His government will present it on November 4th. As Marina von Stackelberg tells us, Carney laid out his plan and set some expectations last night.
When I was in graduate school, the World Wide Web, as we then called it, was that was the modern term of the...
Addressing University of Ottawa students, Prime Minister Mark Carney pitched his first budget. He says will be generational.
This is what the upcoming budget will be about: building, taking control, and winning.
Carney signaled where his government will spend billions of dollars on the military, infrastructure projects, and support for industries hit hard by Trump's tariffs. Now he's set a new goal for Canada to double its exports outside of the U.S. in the next decade. There will be a new plan for immigration and climate change. All this while Carney promises to streamline the government.
And to be clear, we won't transform our economy easily or in a few months. It will take some sacrifices, and it will take some time.
Mahmoud Nanji is a professor at Western University's Ivey Business School.
What he was trying to tell Canadians is, look, we are in for a rough ride over the next little while, and we need to prepare ourselves, a bit of a reality check, that there are some industries in this country that are going to look profoundly different, 5-10 years from now.
This budget will be the first time Canadians get a clear picture of the government's finances in nearly a year. Marina von Stackelberg, CBC News, Ottawa.
Still in Ottawa, we are expecting the Liberals to table a crime bill today. It calls for stricter bail and sentencing standards for offences involving violent crime and organized crime. Among other things, it would allow for consecutive sentences for repeat offenders, so multiple sentences cannot be served at the same time. The fall sitting of the Alberta legislature kicks off today, and education tops the agenda. The government wants to get the province's teachers back to work, even if that means using back-to-work legislation. More than 50,000 teachers have been on strike in Alberta for nearly 3 weeks. Erin Collins has the details.
You should fully expect that there'll be legislation in the week of October 27th.
Danielle Smith isn't mincing words. Alberta's premier plans to force teachers back to work next week.
Without kids returning to the classroom, that, in the view of my education minister and others we've consulted with, would constitute irreparable harm.
Negotiations between the province and teachers have stalled. The government has offered a 12% raise over 4 years and a promise to hire 3,000 more educators. Not enough to address overcrowded classrooms, according to the teachers' union.
The quality of public education in this province has declined shockingly.
Opposition leader Naheed Nenshi says his party will oppose back-to-work legislation.
While that will reopen the schools, it certainly is not a fair deal for the teachers. It's not a fair deal for the students. It doesn't solve the problem.
The lingering strike, a growing political problem for the government too, according to political scientist Lori Williams.
Albertans support teachers. They support education. They want investment in education. They have made misjudgment after misjudgment on the teacher strike.
Well, the teacher strike began on October 6th. Nearly 750,000 Alberta kids have been out of the classroom since then. Erin Collins, CBC News, Calgary.
It is a historic day at the Vatican. Pope Leo XIII prayed this morning in the Sistine Chapel with King Charles seated by his side. This is the first time in 5 centuries a pope and a British monarch have prayed together publicly. The royal visit is part of a symbolic and diplomatic encounter that observers say marks a new chapter in Christian unity. Megan Williams is at the Vatican.
In the hushed splendor of the Sistine Chapel, Michelangelo's Last Judgment painting on the altar above, a scene unfolded that just decades ago was unimaginable. King Charles, head of the Church of England, and Pope Leo bowing their heads in prayer, side by side.
God our Father, you have created the heavens and the earth and made us in your own image.
Religious affairs commentator Catherine Pepinster says the encounter highlights decades of efforts to bridge the gap between the Anglican and Catholic churches. Divisions that began when King Henry VIII broke away from the Catholic Church some 500 years ago.
The thing that it shows is that there is an attempt to bring Christians together. We shouldn't overlook the divisions that still exist. For example, the Catholic Church doesn't have women priests.
Today's encounter at the Vatican, that included Queen Camilla, was supposed to have taken place in April with Pope Francis, but postponed due to his hospitalization and then death. Later today, King Charles will make his way to the Basilica of St. Paul's outside the walls, where he'll be given a ceremonial chair engraved with the Latin words Ut unum sint, may they be one. Beyond religion, today's meeting is also one between 2 heads of state, both on the same page when it comes to disarmament, peace, and environmental issues. Megan Williams, CBC News, the Vatican.
Marco Rubio will be the latest U.S. official to arrive in Israel. The Secretary of State is joining Vice President J.D. Vance and others already in the country. Vance this morning is speaking out against the Israeli Knesset's vote to annex the West Bank. He's calling the move an insult. Israel's foreign minister calls the vote a preliminary reading. He says it will not go forward without the support of the Israeli government. The CBC's Crystal Gomansing has more.
Well, the fact that the U.S. Secretary of State added this trip to his travel schedule shows that the U.S. administration wants to keep up the groundwork, possibly to keep things on track. Now, Marco Rubio will spend the next 3 days here to implement the American peace plan, according to the U.S. Embassy. He will be meeting with partners and is set to, quote, reaffirm America's unwavering commitment to Israeli security. Now, exactly what that means and who he will be meeting with with, we just don't know. But the U.S. Vice President did just have a number of very high-profile meetings. However, one group that still hasn't seen any in-person meetings, or at least not ones that have been promoted publicly, Crystal Gamansing, CBC News, Sderot, Israel.
Europe and the U.S. are applying new pressure on Russia to end its war on Ukraine. Both are hitting the Kremlin with sanctions targeting Russia's energy sector. Anna Cunningham has more from London.
We waited for this. God bless, it will work.
Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky welcoming the fresh sanctions on Russia from both the EU and the US.
This is a good signal to other countries in the world to join the sanctions.
He says the US sanctions against Rosneft and Lukoil, Russia's two largest oil companies, are the first significant pressure on the Kremlin since US President Donald Trump returned to the White House. It's a move that has angered Russia. Its former president, Dmitry Medvedev, says that peacekeeper Trump is on the warpath with Russia and that Trump has aligned himself, he says, with loony Europe. In Brussels, the European Council is deciding if it approves a multi-billion-dollar loan for Ukraine, funded by frozen Russian assets.
We are not giving them back to Russia before they have paid the damages to Ukraine, and Ukraine needs them now,
says Kaja Kallas, the EU's top diplomat.
It should be Russia who pays for the damages that they are causing in Ukraine.
If approved, the loan could be $163 billion, which Ukraine would use to fund military equipment as well as compensating victims of the war. Anna Cunningham, CBC News, London.
And finally, Canada's biggest night for opera happens in Toronto. The Canadian Opera Company's Centre Stage Gala holds its national competition tonight. Rising artists compete to launch their international careers. Many of them are graduates of the COC's Ensemble Studio. The winners will vie for cash prizes and the chance to join Canada's most prestigious professional development program for opera singers. You are listening to one of those celebrated graduates, Jamie Groot, singing Voi che sapete from The Marriage of Figaro. That is the latest national and international news from World Report. I'm Marcia Young.
Good morning, Manitoba. You're listening to Information Radio here on CBC Radio 1. I'm Corey Funk, in for Marcy Marcusa, and it is a chilly one out there. You might want to bundle up. -3 at the airport, -1 at the Forks right now here in Winnipeg. We're going to have more for your forecast coming up. This hour on the show, the Manitoba government has been running recruitment campaigns to attract American doctors to come work here instead. So what's the best way to do that? We're going to hear from a doctor who made that move herself back in 2017. She's going to join us at 7:50. Also, a sturgeon measuring 130 centimeters that was once completely fished out of the Red River. It was caught last weekend at the Forks, and the video is going viral. We're going to learn about what this says about the recovery of the species that's still considered endangered. Plus, Halloween in the North End. That's all coming up here on Information Radio. But first, at 7:11, let's check in with Heather Wells with a look at news headlines.
Good morning. Well, a fire is causing traffic troubles downtown Maine and York. A business in the area is on fire. Fire and emergency crews are there. Police are there directing traffic. They've had to cut power to the area. Manitoba Hydro cutting power. So we can tell you that a number of lanes northbound Maine at York are closed. Eastbound lanes also affected. So if you're heading down towards Main Street. There is a business in that area that is on fire right now. We have sent our CBC reporter, Megan Ketchison, to the scene, and she will bring us the very latest with all the details. But for now, what we can tell you is that it is a fluid situation, is what police are telling me. But the lanes that are impacted mostly are the northbound lanes on Main Street at York and eastbound York. So we'll hear more about that coming up. We're also going to hear about wildfire season. And when that season started this past May, the government was short dozens of firefighting positions. That and much more coming up in our next local news at 7:30.
Thank you very much, Heather.
Thank you.
That is Heather Wells at our CBC News desk. Let's check in now with Abby Aniemi, who's got a look at your weather. Hello.
Good morning, Corey. For those just waking up, I guess you already know it's frosty outside. It's a frosty start, feeling chilly outside already. We see some clear conditions in a lot of regions down south. Though some areas saw fog patches earlier, we're still seeing that around Brandon. That should lift as you get into the morning, and then we'll see a mix of sun and clouds for most of those regions. It's going to be a crisp fall morning. It's still cool in the northern part of the province. A few frosty conditions spotted here and there. Churchill had light snow earlier in the morning, but that's now transitioned to a mix of sun and clouds on its way to that part of the province. Winnipeg right now, it is clear outside. We were at -5 at the airport earlier. Now it's -3, and at the Forks we're looking at -1 there. A few clouds will roll in later with light winds, and we'll see temperatures for Winnipeg warm up to about 7 degrees. Tonight stays partly cloudy, and we drop to close to 0 later tonight into overnight, but tomorrow we see some sunshine. Across the south from Brandon towards Dauphin and into the Interlake region, we are spotting fog here and there. That should clear, and then we'll see a mix of sun and clouds. Highs will be between 8 and 10 degrees for that part of the province, while up north, the powerful influence comes in Churchill, mostly cloudy right now. Fog also spotted there. A few light flurries earlier on. Highs would stay cooler between +2 and 7 degrees for the north today. But Winnipeg right now, downtown, we are at -1.
Thank you very much, Abby.
Thank you.
As for your traffic, as you just heard from Heather, Main Street and York Avenue right now, there is a fire at a business right at the corner. We are looking to get more details on what's going on there, but we have heard from police that it is a fluid situation. So the lanes that are closed right now, we know it's mostly northbound Main. But the 2 lanes, most of the curb and middle lane, are closed. But we heard from police that could change throughout the morning. So heads up there. You may even just want to avoid it if you are heading northbound on Main towards York, because that could slow down your commute. I would love to get some eyes on there if you are in the area to tell us what you are seeing. You can give us a call on the CBC commuter line. That number, 204-788-3093. Well, next here on Information Radio, the Mama Wichita Center is collecting Halloween candy donations. It's to help provide a fun and safe Halloween for youth and families from the North End neighborhood. The center is accepting all kinds of candy donations until Halloween Day, and Christina Liesk is a coordinator at the Mama Wichita Center. Good morning to you.
Hello, good morning.
So tell us a little bit about this donation drive and how it works.
So we're collecting donations from the community around Turtle Island Community Center. We're asking other businesses around there, private-owned businesses, banks, and everybody, or even if someone wants to come drop it off. We do have a haunted house vibes.
Cool.
So families will come into different rooms. Every room has a different theme for a haunted house. Last year we had a clown theme in one room. In the other room we had a zombie. The other room we had a witch theme. And in the gym we have a DJ going with nice songs. And then we have a space for families to sit down and warm up before they actually go for walks around the neighborhood too.
What was it like to be there to see the families take part in this? What did it mean to those families?
It is amazing because we had last year. It was a pretty nice weather outside, so we had about seven 700 people came by,
Wow.
and it was nice and packed. The family loved it. We had hot chocolate going too, so it was a nice seeing everybody just warming up before they actually went to go to other places, and just seeing a bunch of like the other kids coming in costumes and just having them being so amazed about like the decorations and things. It makes it fun for them.
So I'm trying to do the math in my head. So if you say you get 700 people this year, that's a lot of candy. Uh, you need.
Yeah.
Have you had enough in past years to make sure everyone gets some?
We tried our best. I would say we did ask everybody. Everybody from different sources likes to come donate to Turtle Island Community Centers, especially like No Frills. They helped a lot. Safeway helps a lot because they know the families in the neighborhood, and they know Mama Way loves to help with the donation drives too.
Okay. So in terms of how people can get the candy, what they can donate, what you're accepting, what are the details around that?
So at 445, you could donate at 445 King between Monday and Friday at 8:30 till 4. And after 4 o'clock, you could donate it at 510 King Street, which is the Turtle Island Community Center. And you could donate it until 8 o'clock.
Okay. And Christina, I don't want to put you on the spot. Did you grow up in the North End yourself?
I did live there for a little bit. Yeah.
Okay. How is like trick or treating in the North End changed? I don't know if you were since you were a kid to now. Have you noticed any change?
Yes, especially with the Halloween, like the safe Halloween is way safer, and plus you see just a lot of like the community come together. Um, there's when I was like a kid, there wasn't many houses like going down. We always had to go to a different community, so we always had to take buses. But one of my favorite things is just going straight to Turtle Island and then walking with my family somewhere. So it's a good change.
Well, Christina, all the best with the donation drive, and hope you have a lot of fun on Halloween. Thanks for chatting with us this morning.
Okay, thank you.
Christina Leask is a coordinator at the Mama Wichita Center. The center is collecting Halloween candy donations. And as a reminder, so their drop-off location is their site at 445 King Street, Monday to Friday from 8:30 a.m. to 4:30 p.m. And if people can't drop off, they can get it picked up as well. So to arrange a pickup, you can pull out your pen here. So this is Christina's number. If you want to call, I'll say it twice here for you. So 204-963-5998. I'll say it one more time for you here if you are thinking of donating. 204-963-5998.
A batter batted 600 times before bed. A soundtrack showed a shark that never showed.
You're gonna need a bigger boat.
And an anti-war
let me take it out
sitcom
from-
unintentionally became a recruiting tool.
Makes me just such a martini.
Sometimes Terry O'Reilly finds fascinating facts that don't quite fit into his show until now. Bookmarks on Under the Influence, Thursday morning at 11:30, 3:30 p.m. in Newfoundland, and on demand on CBC Listen.
7:20 right now. We got some more details on what's going on northbound Main Street at York. So all morning there has been a fire, and that fire is at the restaurant Bougie. It has closed much of Main and York. So right now we have just heard from a reporter, Megan Ketchison, that fire on northbound Main has the entirety of northbound Main closed. They're being turned onto Broadway actually to get around that. So might be some backups, of course, on Broadway now this morning as things get busy. Southbound Main, though, is open. So if you're heading down southbound Main, open, but northbound Main closed. You're being forced to turn onto Broadway to avoid that fire that's happening at Bougie, which is a restaurant right at the corner of Main and York Street. If you have any details, if you want to give what you're seeing in terms of traffic in the area because of that fire, you can give us a call on the CBC commuter line, 204-788-3090. Well, 7:21 now here on Information Radio. I'm Corey Funk sitting in for Marcy Marcusa. And we got some new music out from Winnipeg band Indian City. The album is called Ghosts and features this next song. It's a collaboration with Winnipeg guitarist Ariel Posen and Tom Wilson of Blackie and the Rodeo King. So take a listen. This is Ghosts, Don't Drown.
Take me down to the riverbed, hang me out to dry. Let the cold wind cut my skin and the water wash my lies. Shadows stretch the devil's hands beneath the dying sky. Ain't no prayer gonna save me now, but the Lord knows I still try, I still try. Footsteps fade in the muddy banks, memories never leave. You can bury all your sins, but the roots still find your feet. I hear your voice on a lonely breeze, calling out my name. Like a song I can't stop singing, wrapped in sorrow, laced with blame. Set me free, carries my sins away, but they're still haunting me. I call out for mercy, mercy won't arrive. Those ghosts don't drown, they just won't stay down. If I go under, just let me my sins away, but they're still haunting me. I call out for mercy, mercy won't arrive. But those ghosts don't drown, they just won't stay down. But those ghosts don't drown.
From Winnipeg's Indian City, that's Ghosts Don't Drown. Right here on CBC Radio 1. Well, 7:25 right now, and 'twas the night before the World Series, and all through the town, Scott Regehr knows what's going down.
Not bad.
Thank you. So it's World Series Eve. So what are you focused on with the Dodgers and the Jays at the battle tomorrow?
Well, Corey, largely I'm focused on Bo Bichette, the star shortstop with a knee injury that's kept him out of the playoffs until this point. Looks like he's good to go. Here's his manager, John Schneider.
He's made some significant progress in terms of how he feels about his swing and how he feels running, So we'll just kind of see where the next couple of days take us and how he impacts our decisions and how he impacts our team. But You're talking about a guy that led our team in RBIs, and he missed the last 20 games of the season. So if we can get him back in any capacity, we're gonna welcome it.
Okay, so what capacity might that be? Bo would love to be back in the field, but shortstop Corey demands quick side-to-side movements that would take a toll on that knee of his, and this is no time to take chances defensively. So could he feature as the team's designated hitter instead? Bichette led the majors in hits at the time of his injury, so clearly he could help. But George Springer's Toronto's DH at the moment, and unless you've been living in a cave, Springer's game's been pretty on point of late. Plus, moving Springer to right field to make room for Bichette at DH would mean Springer was testing his own hobbled knee. So it seems then the best place for Bichette would be as a pinch hitter. If so, it would limit his involvement in the Fall Classic, but it would also give Toronto the most potent of bats coming off of the bench. We may have more clarity today, Corey. It is Media Day ahead of tomorrow's main event.
Well, we'll have to see. Let's switch things up now to chess, where a disturbing story is in the spotlight right now. What's going on?
Yeah, so this involves American phenom Daniel Naroditsky, Corey. He passed away this week, aged just 29. The cause of his death has not been made public. Last Saturday, though, Naroditsky told his massive online following that his mental health was taking a toll from continued harassment. His harasser was Russian former world champion Vladimir Kramnik. Over the past year, Kramnik has repeatedly accused Naroditsky of cheating in online chess. He did so relentlessly, but never provided substantial evidence. Several top players have criticized Kramnik for his behavior towards the American, including world number 2, Hikaru Nakamura.
People were not standing up. Everyone behind the scenes is laughing, saying, oh, Kramnik is old, he's crazy, whatever. But no one is saying anything publicly about it. No one's saying anything. I think it's because, frankly, people are afraid of Kramnik going after them, if I can say that. I do believe that's the truth.
Chess's international governing body, Corey, says it is investigating the matter and considering disciplinary action against the Russian Kramnik.
And finally here, let's just end on a bit of a lighter note. The Jets are back on the ice tonight.
They are, and they'll be looking to continue their early season dominance by winning a 6th game in a row. To do that, Corey, they'll need to get by Seattle, a Kraken team that has been mediocre to start the season and even less than mediocre on this current road trip they've been on. The Kraken have won just once in 5 tries. Tonight is the final game of their road swing. Leading Winnipeg's success, meanwhile, has been Mark Scheifele. He's got goals in 5 straight contests. Also helping the cause, though, Jonathan Toews. Toews scored his first goal for his hometown team against Calgary the other night, and teammate Nino Niederreiter was asked what it's been like playing alongside the future Hall of Famer.
I think it's been awesome having him here. Obviously, his whole resume, the way he played his whole career. I mean, obviously he's an intense guy. As soon as he's on the ice, he's obviously extremely sharp, extremely focused, and he's highly competitive. So it's very cool to have him in the room.
There you are, Nino Niederreiter, Jonathan Toews, and Scheifele and company out on the ice tonight at 7 o'clock against the Seattle Kraken.
Thank you very much. Go Jays.
Go Jays, go Jets. All works.
Yeah. Well, that is Scott Regehr with your sports report. Stay tuned. After the news, imagine catching a fish that's almost a meter and a half long, 130 centimeters, but then you pull it up and you realize it's a sturgeon, a rare endangered sturgeon. We're going to chat with someone from the province to talk about the people that talk about that sturgeon, because someone caught one that size at the Forks. What does that mean for the sturgeon population, and what's the province been doing to help the sturgeon population over the years? That's all coming up after your CBC Winnipeg News.
This is CBC News. Good morning. I'm Heather Wells in Winnipeg. At 7:30, it's chilly. It's -1. Grab your mitts as you head outside. We're going to see more sun today than yesterday. Mix of sun and clouds, a high of 7. Well, fire at a downtown restaurant, Bougie, has snarled this morning's rush at Main and York. CBC reporter Megan Ketchison is there right now and joins us live. Megan?
Well, right now we have smoke that is billowing out of Bougie Restaurant. This is the former Earl's on Main at Main and York, and fire crews have been here within the last hour. Now, we have, again, as I say, smoke billowing out. We have a number of fire crews that are here on the scene pouring water onto the fire. You can see that some of the windows are broken. I spoke very briefly to the owner of Bougie, and he says that they were open last night. He has no information on what happened, and he was a bit in shock to see what was going on this morning. Now, traffic-wise, if you are northbound on Main, you'll be turned off at Broadway. Southbound Main is open, and if you are on York heading towards Main Street, you will be made to turn south. So a lot of traffic restrictions in this area, although it appears that some of the fire crews are starting to pack up. Reporting live, Megan Ketchison, CBC News.
Thanks so much, Megan. CBC News has learned when wildfire season began this past May, the government was short dozens of firefighting positions. Documents obtained through Freedom of Information show 64 seasonal fire ranger jobs had not been filled during the week of May 12th. The Wildfire Division also had several vacancies in key fire management positions. That week is when out-of-control wildfires spread rapidly through the province, leading to the evacuation of many communities. Jesse Gunther is co-owner at Nopaming Lodge. He was given 2 hours to leave his home after fire spread across Nopaming Provincial Park.
It's a lack of preparedness, in my opinion. Considering the fact that we had to get a lot of out-of-province firefighters to come help up here, I know there was crews from Alberta, from Quebec, and even from BC out here.
Natural Resources Minister Ian Bushy says his government is focused on recruitment, and his goal for next season is to have 0 vacancies. The arrest of 2 men for a double homicide in Lake Winnipeg Cottage Country comes as little solace for the father of one of the victims. The bodies of Sly Thiebert and Melissa Wilson were found in the arm of Victoria Beach in the early hours of June 20th. Yesterday, RCMP announced they have now charged 2 men with second-degree murder. Glenn Thiebert says his son was a big teddy bear who would never harm anyone. He says the arrests don't make up for the deaths of 2 people.
I've been getting phone calls all day and everybody's saying I should be happy. I'm not happy at all. It's not going to bring him back. It's not going to bring back Melissa.
Nathaniel Moore Harrison was arrested in Nova Scotia. Mitchell Jonathan was arrested in BC. The sister of a woman who died after being hit by a police vehicle is angry Manitoba's police watchdog isn't recommending charges against the officer. Tammy Bateman was struck by an unmarked police vehicle in September 2024 at an encampment at Fort Rouge Park. Officers were there transporting another person back to that encampment. Lori Bateman, the woman's sister, doesn't feel Winnipeg police have been accountable to her family since Tammy's death.
Never reached out to my family to personally apologize. There's not taking any accountability or anything. I'm very frustrated about the whole thing, and I don't agree with what the report said.
Lori Bateman says she will continue seeking legal options to get justice for her sister. A former American physician says convincing others in the U.S. to make the move to Canada could be as simple as letting them know they're needed. Dr. Allison Carlton left Iowa and came to Canada with her wife in 2017 to work as a family doctor in Winnipeg. She moved for personal and financial reasons after Donald Trump was elected president the first time. Carlton says she was willing to do whatever she needed to find work in Manitoba, but she says it was recruiters who made her feel wanted.
It came down more to what did I want? And I think that if we could get that message out there, that they would flock up here.
The province has recruited 6 physicians from the U.S. this year. 27 other doctors are still being recruited. A Manitoba judge has tossed 2 legal challenges of Manitoba's controversial cut to moose licenses last year. Pimicikamak Cree Nation and the Manitoba Wildlife Federation both challenged the province's 75% license cuts to hunt in parts of northern Manitoba. Manitoba Court of King's Bench Justice Brian Bowman has dismissed both applications, saying the decision was imperfect but justifiable. Byron Williams is the lawyer representing Pimicikamak. He says the community is considering its options.
They have at least 3 options available to them. One is to proceed to trial. Another one is to proceed before an arbitrator under the Northern Flood Agreement, and the third is to appeal.
The Wildlife Federation already says it plans to appeal that decision. Well, the Winnipeg Blue Bombers have signed a contract for makeup. The deal is with Miss Mac's Cosmetics in Salmon Arm, BC. It's Miss Mac Eye Black, already worn by the players, will soon be available to Bomber fans. Bomber President and CEO Wade Miller.
It's great that we're able to take the products that we use on the sidelines and our players use and be able to sell in our Bomber store for our fans.
Miss Mac is owned by Missy McIntosh, now the first female-owned cosmetics company to ink a deal with a Canadian men's sports organization. You can find more news updated throughout the day at cbc.ca/Manitoba.
Thank you very much, Heather.
Thank you.
That is Heather Wells with your CBC News at your CBC News desk. I'm Corey Funk this morning in for Marcy Marcusa. You're listening to Information Radio here on CBC Radio 1. Let's take a look at your weather right now with Abby Adiemi.
Good morning, Corey. It's a crisp and I call it a crisp fall day across the province this morning. We're noticing freezing fog in some regions, but that should lift as you get through the morning. The skies will stay mostly clear in a lot of regions to start. Then we'll see partly cloudy conditions with light breeze and cool air. Winnipeg right now mainly clear outside, sitting between -3 at the airports and -1 downtown. A few clouds will drift in later, and we'll see a light west winds turning a northwest later in the day. Highs will be around 7 degrees. In the Pembina Valley region, it's clear around Morden, Winkler, Alton, and Morris at this time. Temperatures are reading -2. It feels closer to -5. We spotted some foggy conditions in that area. The leftover ones should clear as you get into the morning. Then we'll see a mix of sun and clouds. Temperatures will warm up to 8 degrees for that part of the province. In the Westman region, foggy around Brandon all the way towards Nipawin this morning, with freezing fog coming with that as well. Temperatures near -3. That should clear by noon, and then it's going to give way to sunshine and light winds. We'll see that region warm up to about 10 degrees later. In the Parkland region, Dauphin through Russell, we're looking at -4 and clear at this time. Foggy conditions spotted here and there. That should clear also as you get into the morning, and you see a mix of sun and clouds. Clearing near midday, you see temperature warm up to about 10 degrees. And then tonight, frost returns as your temperature for that part of the province will drop to about -2. But the good news is sunshine on its way on Friday. For Gimli, we're looking at -3 around that area for this time of the day. Clear there, a mix of sun and clouds on its way, and we'll see highs near 7 degrees. For the powerful influence surrounding communities, we're looking at 3 degrees and -1 in that area. Cloudy. Expect some drizzle. You'll see a mix of sun and clouds also to calm the conditions down, and you warm up to about 7 degrees later. Thompson is at 2 and cloudy. A slight chance of flurries early in the day. That should clear. Then you'd notice some foggy conditions come and go, and you see highs near 4 degrees. In Churchill, we're looking at 0 right now, mostly cloudy, and you warm up to +2 later in the day. So, Curry, it's all about... We're getting into that season where it's more like you're going to be waking up to frosty conditions wherever you are in the province. Right now, we're reading -1 and -3 in Winnipeg.
Double digits ahead for the weekend, though, for highs. Thank goodness.
Sunshine on its way.
Yes. Thank you very much, Abby. That's Abby Adiemi with a look at your forecast. For the commute right now, though, the biggest issue all morning, of course, has been at Maine and York. Northbound Maine, last we heard, entirely closed. Traffic being rerouted onto Broadway. Southbound Maine still open. But you may have some troubles also if you're heading down York as well because of the fire at Bougie, the restaurant right at the corner of Maine and York. We do have a reporter on scene keeping an eye on what's going on. She said it looks like maybe they're starting to pack up soon, but that doesn't mean that the traffic situation has changed yet. So we're going to keep an eye on that throughout the afternoon. Also got a call from Brian on the commuter line. He says Fermor and Autumnwood, the lights are flashing red, and that's been causing some backups as people treat that as a four-way stop. So heads up might be slow around Fermor and Autumnwood in all directions. If you see anything going on out there, you can give us a call on the CBC commuter line. That number, 204-788-3093. Well, next here on Information Radio, last weekend, a local fisherman at the Forks caught a sturgeon measuring 1.3 meters long. The video garnered over 200,000 views on social media. And yesterday, on Up to Speed, Corwin Janicek shared what that moment was like with CBC's Chloe Friesen.
So I was at the Forks, and I decided to throw a line in and get some food, and we waited hours and hours and hours with no bites, and then finally something bit my rod, and this monster was on the end of it, and it took me about 10 to 15 minutes to reel in. It was a crazy fight.
That was Corwin Janicek, the angler who caught the sturgeon. He did return it back to the river. The social media post has been flooded with questions about what this means for the health of our rivers and more. And Derek Craker is the fisheries manager with the province of Manitoba. Good morning to you, Derek.
Good morning, Corey.
So what was it like when you first heard that someone caught a sturgeon in the Red River, here in Winnipeg by the Forks?
Oh, I was smiling ear to ear. This is just great news. Sturgeon are been present in the Red River for quite some time, but they're not always encountered by anglers. So to see, first of all, someone so excited to catch it, and then of course a passerby understanding how interesting it was to take that recording, and then have so many people comment on it, I thought was great. So people definitely are interested in sturgeon, and it's just great to see people sharing that wonderful moment with Corwin.
And how rare is it to find a sturgeon in the red, but not even just a sturgeon, but a sturgeon that's that big, 1.3 meters long?
It's actually not that rare. There's quite a few sturgeon in the Red River. I know that there was some comment that they might be extirpated or extinct, but that's not the case. The sturgeon have been there, but there have been rare over the past number of years, but they're increasing. We know from the Master Angler program that people are catching more and more sturgeon in the Red River every year. There's also a tagging program done by the federal fisheries folks who've been watching sturgeon passing through the city of Winnipeg quite regularly. So it's not uncommon for them to be there. The size is also not necessarily uncommon. That's a mature size sturgeon. So they do get bigger than that, but that's sort of an average size for an adult. So this was just a great news story.
So in terms of the history of the species, though, as you said, the population has ebbed and flowed. So tell me a little bit about the history of the sturgeon in the Red River and how it's kind of dwindled but recovered as well.
Yeah, for sure. So the lake sturgeon across Manitoba, including the Red River, were overharvested over 100 years ago. So that's before 1920. The population's already crashed because of overharvest. And it's unfortunate because sturgeon have a slightly different life history than other fishes. They grow large sizes, but they also take a long time to reach maturity. So when people harvested them 100 years ago, they didn't realize that the harvest of those really large fish was going to have a long-term impact. So flash forward now literally over 100 years, and people now know to replace and return those large fish back to the river because that's the breeding segment of the population. And that's what's causing the recovery of sturgeon in the Red River and other places in Manitoba, is that we now know that if we can protect those large female fish, that it'll help generate more sturgeon for future populations. And we're seeing that in the last 10 to 15 years. We've seen many more people catching sturgeon on the Red River, which is again just such a great news story.
Right. It kind of blew me away to hear the fact. So for female sturgeon, it's around 25 years old when they can actually start spawning, and for males, it's about 17. So that's a long time if you catch it, and that can really throw things off if you catch a sturgeon that's younger than that. So
yeah, that's right. And in fact, sturgeon, the female sturgeon begin to reproduce at age 25, and after that, they only spawn every 5 to 7 years.
Oh, wow.
So you can see how the life history of this fish is different than other fishes, and that's why overharvest of the largest individuals was what really caused the problem over 100 years ago. That was the main cause for the population decline at that time. But we've seen now steady recovery as we've understood to make sure we return those large fish back to the water.
Does this tell us anything about the health of our rivers themselves as well, like the water too? The fact that the sturgeon population has recovered so well.
Right. Well, sturgeon are actually quite robust. They can tolerate quite a variety of water quality conditions and temperatures. I mean, to be a fish in Manitoba, you got to be tough because we have very warm summers and very cold winters. So sturgeon are a fish that are tolerant of a variety of water quality conditions. What it tells us about the fish community is that it's returning to a normal or a very diverse fish community. It's good to have sturgeon, a lot of the suckers and catfish. Of course, Manitoba's famous walleye and our channel catfish are habitants of the Red River. So it just demonstrates that when we have a healthy ecosystem of a variety of fishes, it benefits all of us.
And just for kind of news you can use, what are people supposed to do if they do catch a sturgeon? I know in this case they returned it legally. Like what is the move if you catch a sturgeon?
Yeah, for sure. If people are angling, let's say in the Red River in Winnipeg, which again we have this fantastic fishery right inside the city of Winnipeg, be prepared to catch a fish this size. So if you're fishing, make sure you're ready with tools and devices to remove the hook. Have a place where you can land the fish safely, where it's not on sharp rocks and so forth, and then try to get the fish back in the water as reasonably quickly as possible. We try to tell people, think about a minute. So if you are thinking you might catch a large fish, have your pliers ready, have your gloves ready, have your net ready, have a place to land the fish. And so when you take that fish out of the water, try to remove the hook. If you'd like to take a picture, in this case, it's great that Corwin did it. It's a great catch. Take that picture, but then try to get that fish back into the water as quickly as possible. Keeping in mind that all fish have a slime layer. And so you typically want to keep that slime layer on the fish. So trying not to handle it too much is beneficial. But again, the good news is that sturgeon are quite robust when it comes to catch and release fishing. We've had some studies done in Manitoba that shows they're very, very tolerant of catch and release fishing. So this fish will likely be just fine that was released. And, it's great. Again, a great news story. And we just encourage people to enjoy this fish and then return them back to the water as soon as possible after catching. But they can certainly take that picture and celebrate with their friends.
And are they still technically endangered or no? So what's their official status right now in Manitoba?
Right, they don't have any official status. We know that the federal CSIWIC has recommended a listing for them, but in Manitoba, we've seen their numbers improving almost everywhere we studied them. So it's interesting to see whether we get to a place where designation is required. Right now, in terms of the populations increasing in so many places, in my opinion, it doesn't seem like that would be the necessary step because we're in so much better shape than we were even 20 years ago. So, our populations are improving dramatically. So that's where we stand with that.
You ever caught a sturgeon yourself?
I have caught a sturgeon myself. It's extremely exciting, and I encourage everyone to go for it.
How big was it? Bigger than this one or smaller? Do you remember?
Mine was smaller. I've caught a few that were smaller than this one. So again, Corwin's got me beat.
And just before I let you go here, this is a good sign, obviously, for the sturgeons. Other fish populations, are they experiencing a similar growth, or is this just a sturgeon thing?
I'd like to say that Manitoba has very well managed fisheries across the province. We're really, really fortunate with the numbers of lakes and rivers that we have and the varieties of fisheries we have, both warm water species and cold water species. Manitoba really is blessed with a lot of great fishing, and we've probably never been in a better place with our fish populations, and our regulations, both on our recreational side and our commercial fisheries, are meant for that long-term sustainability. And Manitobans can expect good fishing for all the different fish species, no matter where they are.
Well, Derek, thank you for your time this morning. All the best.
You're welcome. Thanks.
Derek Craker is the fisheries manager at the government of Manitoba.
I'm Suresh Das. I've spent my career writing about the local favorites that make Canada's food scene truly unique. I bit into a chili. Woo! From vibrant street food to comforting traditional dishes.
The most important ingredients in jollof rice, love.
To innovative, personal twists. Butter chicken lasagna.
Butter chicken lasagna. That's what made it all happen.
I believe every bite tells a story. Now, I want to share those stories with you.
New series Locals Welcome with Suresh Das. Watch free on CBC Gem.
Quick traffic update. For, westbound Fermor coming into the sea backed up all the way to Westwood, says Dennis. And of course, also northbound Maine, as far as we know, still closed at York. Traffic is being rerouted onto Broadway because of that fire at the Bougie restaurant on the corner of York and Maine. We'll keep an eye on that throughout the morning. Well, next on Information Radio, Manitoba has one of the lowest numbers of family physicians per capita in Canada, and that's according to Doctors Manitoba. To try and change that, the province has placed ads in several U.S. states in hopes that it makes practicing here more attractive, and perhaps it's working. Earlier this week, the province said 6 doctors have been recruited to move to Manitoba from the U.S., and 27 other physicians from the U.S. are currently in the recruitment process. Dr. Allison Carlton is a family physician from Iowa who moved to Winnipegosis in 2017. She's been involved in the promotional campaign, and she spoke with us earlier via Zoom.
So tell me a bit about your journey. Why did you choose to come to Canada to practice medicine?
I was in practice in Iowa, as you said, and basically financially our ends were not meeting. And so we decided we needed to do something different. I was trying things like doing a little locums down there. We had extended hours. We reached out to niche markets like the LGBTQ population, and still working incredible hours and having difficulty financially. So we knew we needed a different model because I like cold better than heat, I guess, is mainly why we looked north instead of south. Plus, it was closer to family we were going to be leaving in Iowa. So we looked to come to Canada for that reason. And also, of course, this was right after Trump got elected. And we knew that things were changing in our country. And being a gay couple, we were concerned about that, plus just the general way things were changing.
What's it been like for you at your practice since coming to Manitoba and working here?
We started looking in this area because we like the prairies. Actually, it was combined with a camping trip because we were planning on a canoe trip in northern Minnesota, and we wanted to practice our techniques for camping in colder weather. So we came up here in June of 2017 and did get some cold, rainy weather in the Riding Mountain, and found that we were adequately prepared. But also at that time, we needed to look at jobs. We needed a job offer to complete coming to Canada. We also looked at several different places. We worked with Prairie Mountain Health. They were the most eager to work with us. When we got to Winnipeg, it had been cold and rainy prior, and we got here and it was like, whoa, the sun was shining, the grass was green, all the gardens were perfectly manicured, it seemed like. And it was just a beautiful place. My concern was, would I have enough business, because it's a small, very small community, but it has quite a large catchment area. And I need not be worried. I was assured I wouldn't need to be worried, but now that I've been here for almost 8 years, I can say I am not worried about the volume of patients with everyone happy. Yeah, everyone has insurance. Everyone has insurance, and so there's plenty of patients. It used to be in the States, if a patient left, you kind of felt bad, but around here it's like makes room for another one, and you get paid really good here too.
So I was going to lean into that, the major differences, about practicing medicine in Manitoba, in Canada, versus in the States. There must be many, given that our systems function so differently.
In the States, people who you want to have in your practice are people with insurance. When you bill an insurance company in the States, they always dock your billings. It doesn't matter what you bill, they only pay what they're going to pay. And they take forever to do it. You maybe have your money in 3 months. Well, in Manitoba, we have Doctors Manitoba negotiating with the government for contract fees, which then we all agree on. And when you bill those, you get that money in the bank 2 weeks later. When we were in the States, it was difficult. And we came here, we were able to buy then 80 acres of land within 2 years and build a house. And that's all paid for now. And also I went through breast cancer treatment here. And if I had done that in the States, I would have gone bankrupt.
What challenges are there, if any, working in a doctor in the public system here in Canada versus where you're working in the States? Are there any downsides or things that maybe were seen as challenges?
The biggest challenge for me coming here to a small town is not knowing always where I need to get the services that I need for my patients. For instance, if a patient needs, say, a Holter monitor or a 24-hour blood pressure monitor, or sleep studies, or just these odd things that patients need from time to time, knowing how to get those. Fortunately, I've had good physicians in Dauphin who've been able to, I would call them and ask them questions and be able to bounce things off of them, because I am up here by myself and I'm not worried about that. I like being by myself because there's advantages when it comes to who's on call and who's taking the next admission. Well, it's me, and that's okay. Of course, the secondary to that is, how long do they have to wait? And probably my biggest frustration here is that patients expect that we're all the doctors in Manitoba are connected and I can see the notes when they go down to Dauphin Walk-in Clinic when I'm not open, and they are very frustrated that I can't see those notes. And I hear this many times a week.
Are you
And so the
frustrated? Just to interject, are you frustrated you can't see those notes? Like, how much would that help you as a physician in this province as they move toward that long-standing promise of, better interconnectivity and digital records and such?
Oh, it's incredibly frustrating. I have a patient who wants me to refill some medications, and they said they got them 3 months ago. And I'm like, okay, I need some documentation why you were giving these. And it turns out, well, it was actually a year ago, and it wasn't the same story. And so those kinds of things happen. And currently, I'm having a lot of trouble, and this may be only me, but I don't know, with the e-chart not showing the documents when I go to find reports. It's just a blank screen, and that's really, really frustrating because that hampers my work.
Let me ask you, go back to where we started. Manitoba this week with the numbers, 6 new doctors from the U.S. Among 33 physicians coming. What would you say is needed to convince more doctors from the United States to think about coming to Manitoba?
They don't see that we need them, and they don't understand that they can kind of make their niche practice here. I've seen that since I came, and the need too. Like when we first started looking, we were like, okay, I'll do whatever I need to for them to take me. And I updated all of my, advanced life supports and all those kinds of things. I was like, whatever I have to do, but it really didn't come down to that. It came down more to what did I want? If we could get that message out there, that they would flock up here.
Would you ever consider going back to practice in the U.S.?
No. In fact, Marcy, my wife and I dropped our U.S. citizenship last summer, and that was that was just a high moment for us. And so we are fully Canadian, and I have family down in the States now, and they understand that it's not safe for me to be down there as a gay woman. And and I just can't wait to get my daughter and my wife's daughter to see the light and come on up too.
Thank you so much, Dr. Carlton, for being with us this morning and sharing your journey. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
It's Dr. Alison Carlton. She's a family doctor in Winnipeg, Manitoba. She spoke to Marcy Marcusa earlier this week. Well, let's check in with news headlines. Here with us is Heather Wells.
Good morning. Well, fire crews are still on the scene of a restaurant fire at Main and York. The fire at Bougie was called in just after 5:30 this morning. No one was hurt. Smoke still billows from the damaged restaurant, and crews are monitoring hotspots. They're working to reopen Main at York as quickly as possible, but for now, you may still face restrictions. More news at 8:30.
Ashley called the commuter line. She says the lights are now working at Fermor and Autumnwood, though it's still pretty backed up. More to come. We're going to get reaction on non-U.S. imports coming up.
On cue. When Steve Martin isn't acting or doing stand-up or, being a comedy legend, he's performing bluegrass on the banjo. His latest project is an album released with the great banjo player Alison Brown. They'll both be here to talk about how they fell in love with the banjo and their new record.
When Alison and I started writing songs together, you start to get into a groove.
Cue with Tom Power. This morning at 10:30 in Newfoundland and on CBC Listen or wherever you get your podcasts. The CBC News is next. Coming up in half an hour, it's The Current with Matt Galloway.
The cognitive scientist Steven Pinker wants to talk about what you know and what you know that he knows that you know. The topic is common knowledge and how that shared understanding is key to humans working together. Steven Pinker coming up on The Current.
This is World Report. Good morning. I'm Marcia Young. Mark Carney is starting the work of selling next month's budget to Canadians. The Prime Minister spoke about it last night at an event at the University of Ottawa. He talked about what you could expect when the budget is unveiled November 4th. Janice McGregor is covering that story from Ottawa. And Janice, what did this speech tell us about what will be in the budget?
Marcia, old hands will tell you that one of the first things you look for in a budget is where the economic growth is coming from. And from Mark Carney last night, we heard a similar formula to what the Americans are trying right now. Import less, export more. The Prime Minister talked about how other countries make much more of their own stuff when it comes to what key industries need. He cited steel as a top example. And he repeated that Canada's new strategy for defense purchases is going to try a lot harder to shop at home too. But as much as this might disappoint international trading partners, Carney's also expecting that they're going to be willing at the same time to buy a lot more from Canada. Way more. He set a target of doubling non-U.S. exports over the next decade. That's probably impossible without huge gains in major Asian consumer markets like China, India. I'd expect to hear a lot more about this as Carney heads to Asia for a pair of key regional summits over the next week and a half. Last night's speech also signaled a shift in Liberal climate policy.
With a focus on results over objectives, on investments over prohibition, we will build sustainably.
And that suggests a future that's less about banning things outright or limiting production and appears to tell companies instead, put together a responsible business case and we'll consider it.
What happens if Canada's growth does not match Carney's plan, Janice?
There's the rub, because he's still maintaining his campaign pledge to bring government revenues in line with its operating expenses within 3 years. But without growth, without more taxes from that, he's going to have to raise other taxes, make even bigger spending cuts than are already contemplated, or punt on this budget balancing promise. As Carney put it,
we will have to do less of some of the things that we want to do so we can do more of what we must do to build a bigger and better Canada.
At times, this speech seemed to be preconditioning Canadians to accept that some of what Liberals promised in the past is not going to be possible now.
Thank you, Janice.
You're welcome.
The CBC's Janice McGregor in Ottawa. The NDP is beginning its rebuilding process. It lost official party status in the last federal election. Last night, the 5 people vying for the party's leadership had a chance to speak to Canadians. David Thurton has more.
The forum was light on policy, but the 5 leadership candidates each shared their vision for the NDP and how to fix it. Union leader Rob Ashton wants a party that's unapologetic about its message.
We're in a class war. It's the ruling class versus the working class. And we all have to understand that. And we have to be loud about it. And we got to rally the troops.
Over the years, parties like the NDP, according to leadership hopeful and Edmonton MP Heather McPherson, have pushed people away, excluding them. Her campaign, she says, is about building a bigger tent.
This party is for everyone. And it is not about changing our values. It's not about changing what we believe. It's about changing how we talk to people and where we talk to people.
Unlike the other candidates, Avi Lewis, a well-known TV presenter, did speak in detail about his policies, like a public option for grocery stores and cell phone providers.
And we feel that it's time for some straight talk, because we know why. We have every sector of our economy dominated by a handful of small players. 5 big banks, 5 big grocery chains, 3 phone companies giving us the highest prices and the worst customer service anywhere.
There's still time for NDP candidates to talk about their big ideas to remake the party. New Democrats won't choose a new leader until March. David Thurton, CBC News, Ottawa.
An organ in the Sistine Chapel marks a historic visit by King Charles. The king is the first head of the Church of England to pray publicly with the Pope in 500 years.
Let us pray. God our Father, you have created the heavens and the earth and made us in your own
Pope Leo XIII leads in prayer with Charles seated by his side. Such a prayer service has not happened since Henry VIII broke with Rome in 1534 to form the Church of England. The schism was over his desire to annul his marriage. Today's visit is considered a symbolic display of unity between the two churches. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky welcomes new U.S. sanctions against Russia at today's EU summit in Brussels.
American sanctions are also very important, and this is a good signal to other countries in the world to join the sanctions.
Washington is targeting Russia's two largest oil companies to pressure Moscow to negotiate a peace deal. The move comes after U.S. President Donald Trump declined to provide Ukraine with long-range Tomahawk missiles. Katie Nicholson reports.
The U.S. president made it clear once again, no Tomahawk missiles for Ukraine.
The only way a Tomahawk is going to be shot is if we shot it, and we're not going to do that.
Instead, the U.S. has launched another powerful weapon into the heart of the Russian economy, damaging sanctions on its largest two oil companies, Rosneft and Lukoil. NATO head Mark Rutte.
It's all about changing the calculus, making sure that Putin understands that the president's vision this weekend of having a ceasefire.
The EU and the UK welcomed the harsh economic measures on what they see as a truculent Russia. Stateside, Trump had long been under pressure by some in Congress to hit the country with tougher sanctions.
Russia's economy is already dropping, the ruble's dropping.
Senate Republican Mark Wayne Mullen backed the decision.
If you start putting the economic woes and start damaging their economy even farther, I believe this is what will bring Putin to the table. Other than that, nothing else seems to work.
Trump's shifting stance on the Russian leader, with whom he had become annoyed over the last few months, shifted again after a lengthy phone call last Thursday night. At the time, Trump agreed to meet Putin in Hungary, but yesterday confirmed that meeting is off, at least for now.
It didn't feel right to me. It didn't feel like we were going to get to the place we have to get, so I canceled it.
And for the moment, appears to be taking a dimmer view of his interactions with Putin.
Every time I speak with Vladimir, I have good conversations, and then they don't go anywhere.
Words may have failed, but it's hoped dire economic numbers induced by the sanctions will not. Katie Nicholson, CBC News, Toronto.
Russia is reacting this morning to the U.S. sanctions. The foreign minister describes them as counterproductive to peace, but former President Dmitry Medvedev has stronger words. He calls the White House's decision an act of war against Russia. Medvedev is currently deputy chair of Russia's Security Council. And finally, a proposed project to create the continent's first whale sanctuary in Nova Scotia has cleared one more hurdle. The province has given the Department of Natural Resources approval to issue a land lease to the project. The belugas from Marineland could find a home there. The theme park is closed to the public and is struggling to care for the animals. Lisa Shing reports.
This is a major milestone.
CEO of the Whale Sanctuary Project, Charles Vinnick, says getting a step closer to receiving a crown lease for about 80 hectares of land and water off Nova Scotia's eastern shore is a win. But there are still other hurdles to clear before they can create a home for captive whales.
I hope that with this approval of the lease, that we can work with all of the community and respond to concerns they have.
This sanctuary has been touted by animal rights activists as a possible place for some of Marineland's 30 remaining belugas to live out the rest of their days. That's after the fisheries minister blocked the defunct theme park from sending them to China. But even with this latest approval, there are still more hurdles. 3 of the 9 adjacent property owners to the location have not agreed to it. Marineland doesn't want them going there either. Ontario's Solicitor General Michael Kersner, in charge of animal welfare, is calling on Ottawa to step up.
We think it's urgent that the federal government revisit the necessary documents on export permit and to sign it so at least some whales can go to China and maybe some can go to Nova Scotia.
Fisheries Minister Joanne Thompson said in a statement she stands by her decision not to export the animals to China where they would continue life in captivity, but is willing to consider other export applications. Meanwhile, Marineland says it's running out of money to care for them. Lisa Shing, CBC News, Toronto.
And that is the latest national and international news from World Report News Anytime, cbcnews.ca. I'm Marcia Young.
Morning, Manitoba. You're listening to Information Radio here on CBC Radio 1. I'm Corey Funk, sitting in for Marcy Marcusa. Hope you've dusted off your parka. It's starting to get cold. Coming up this hour on the show, we are going to be talking to an expert after new data from Statistics Canada shows that 4 out of 5 Canadian teens aren't getting enough physical activity, and there's been a steady decline since 2019. We're asking an expert why that may be and learn some of the tips to encourage kids to get active. Also, we're going to hear what an economist thinks of the Prime Minister's plan to double non-U.S. exports and what that could mean for our economy going forward. That's what's coming up here on Information Radio. And if you're wondering why you want to dust off your parka, it's -5 right now at the airport. Very chilly out there. You can see your breath. 8:11 right now. Let's check in with Heather Wells with a look at news headlines.
Good morning. Well, fire crews are working to clear the fire at Bougie Restaurant. That's at Main and York. That fire started just after 5:30 this morning. No one was hurt. And it has, though, snarled traffic around Main and York. Crews now are working to get that area cleared up. A former American physician says convincing others in the U.S. to make the move to Canada could be as simple as letting them know they're needed. Dr. Allison Carlton left Iowa in 2017 to work as a family doctor in Winnipeg. She says it was recruiters who made her feel wanted. We'll hear more coming up in our next local news at 8:30.
Thank you very much, Heather.
Thank you.
Abby Adiemi, what's going on in the weather?
Yeah, crisp and calm Thursday morning. Chilly start, I would say. Some fog patches lifting in a bunch of regions. The sun already making its appearance for most parts of the province this morning. Winnipeg right now, we are reading -5 at the airport and still -1 downtown. So it's a bit of, this weather here, this weather there in the city. Depending on where you are, you're within that range of -5 and -1 in the city. Fog patches lifting around the city perimeters, so look out for that. And that will leave behind a mix of sun and clouds for the rest of the day. Across the south from Brandon through Nipah all the way to Dauphin and Gimli, we're seeing temperatures starting around -4, but with the wind chill factored in, it feels like -5 in those areas. And we will see up to -10 for highs in that part of the province. Up north, we're looking at 1 and 2 degrees up north with cloudy skies and some fog patches clearing here and there. Overall, it's a typical fall day across board curry with sunshine that will not really cool things off much this morning. Before handing traffic over to you, before we came on the mic, I got a call about St. Mary's eastbound towards Pembina. Just by the bridge, there's a motor vehicle collision involving 2 vehicles there. So if you're approaching that access, approach with caution. It's just on the left. So take it easy as you approach that access.
Thanks, Abby.
Thank you.
Also, all morning, the biggest issue, of course, has been at the corner of Main and York, the restaurant Bougie. There was a fire there, and that has northbound Main closed. People are being diverted heading northbound Main onto Broadway. Last we've heard, and as you can imagine, that's caused some residual backups. Also impacting traffic heading from York onto Main. As well, the lights were flashing red at Fermor and Autumnwood earlier today, but those have now been repaired. But there has been backups. We heard earlier from Chris that actually it's even impacting traffic on La Jamaudière going northbound all the way up to Maginot. So heads up, may still be slow going, but hopefully that clears sooner rather than later now that those lights are working at Fermor and Autumnwood. If you have any other updates for us, you can give us a call on the CBC commuter line. That number, 204-788-3093. Well, if you're struggling to convince your kids to put down their phones and get off the couch, you are not alone. 4 out of 5 teens in Canada aren't getting enough physical activity. That's according to new data from Statistics Canada. The latest numbers show that from 2022 to 2024, only 21% of youth were meeting physical activity requirements. That's compared to 36% from 2018 to 2019. And the age group with the most significant declines were youth between 12 and 17 years old. So what's going on? Some say the culprit, maybe social media. CBC's Geneva Dosso headed to Grant Park High School yesterday, where she asked students how they stay active.
Matthew Brimble.
How much physical activity would you say you get every week?
Like 1,000,000,000%. I'm always moving. I'm always active. I do swimming. I do basically every sport you can think of.
My name is Caitlin Schmidt. Well, I don't really count like the hours. I walk like a lot. So like I usually go Like I usually get like 10,000 steps a day, or I try to. And then obviously like gym and stuff like that. But yeah, other than that, not much.
My name is Manuela Oxman. Like not a lot. I'd say like 5 hours.
There's a new study that found that kids aged 12 to 17 don't get as much physical activity anymore. Is that surprising to you?
That's not very surprising. With the new age of technology and things, kids are less incentivized to move to be able to do what they want because the internet is giving them all those possibilities just on their phone.
I think that we are on our phones a little too much, and that that sometimes instead of moving our bodies, we decide to just go on our phone instead, when we really should be going and moving our bodies more.
And that was Jenna Badasso speaking with students at Grant Park yesterday. Our next guest has been helping people across Canada move their bodies more. Lee Vanderloo is the scientific director at Participaction. Good morning to you.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
You're on Zoom here, and I saw you nodding your head along as those students were talking about why maybe students aren't moving or kids aren't moving as much. So what did you think about what you just heard there?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think, they're right within that age population that we're most concerned about, giving the new statistics. And, they're living it day in and day out. And they provided some really great reasons as to why, their peers or themselves, others of their age, are probably not engaging as much physical activity. And certainly, the omnipresence of screens and digital, not just in how they learn at school, get homework done, but also how they're socializing, how they're choosing to spend their free time. And then, of course, just our day-to-day activities. Physical activity has really been socially engineered out of our day-to-day lives. We no longer require the same amount of energy to accomplish the tasks that we once did. And this is definitely becoming very apparent, and more concerningly so, among kids 12 to 17.
And what do you think about that report? Did you find it surprising, or was it kind of this kind of confirms what I already kind of know anecdotally?
I mean, I think the trends have been showing that, as we age, starting from, early childhood all the way up into adolescence, adulthood, and older adulthood, physical activity levels tend to decline. So it's not that surprising, that overall trend, but I think what's most striking is the fact that there was such a significant drop in this 12 to 17 age group. They are now considered the most inactive group or population in Canada, which is definitely something we haven't seen before. And I think what's even more concerning to that is not only has there been a pretty significant population level drop over the last, 4 or 5 years, but that this gap has widened further between boys and girls.
Yeah, I was actually just about to chat about that. So the numbers in the report show 90% of teenage girls aren't as active as boys. So, based on kind of the populations you've worked with, why do you think that is?
Yeah, so a number of reasons come to mind. I mean, first and foremost, from a very young age, oftentimes kids are socialized to engage in different types of activity based on gender. So, it's not that surprising that young boys are encouraged to engage in more rambunctious play, more active play, definitely push more towards certain sports, whereas sometimes girls are encouraged to engage in more quiet play. And I think that's just more of a gendered and social impact that tends to persist across the lifespan, and something we still very much see now. I think there's a lot more attention in terms of male sports, not only in terms of having the availability, appropriate coaching staff, encouragement by family and friends. It's how boys oftentimes engage in social activities is through sports and physical activity. And also when we look at it in terms of media or sporting events, fandom, it's definitely way more focused on male sports and more male-centric, whereas for girls, we tend to see less of that. And so really understanding that not only is it an equity issue, but it's also a program design issue.
And in terms of, we were kind of talking about social media, and I think a lot of students, that's what they said is the problem. What do you think, how much of a role is it actually social media? You said there's other barriers as well, like access to sports, but how much of it is actually, can we just put the blame on social media for this?
For sure. I mean, I don't I think it contributes quite significantly. If we think of our we have 24 hours in a day. If we're not sleeping, then we're either moving or being sedentary. And if more time is being spent being sedentary, namely in front of screens, then that limits the amount of time that then is available for, say, sleeping or for getting active. So there's a little bit of a displacement happening. So definitely it is a big contributor, a big culprit. I wouldn't say it's the only issue. I think, the lack of, going outdoors. I think in terms of increased focus on academics, and those core subjects, away from movement, thinking that, having gym class or having opportunities to move is something that, displaces more focused time on seated schoolwork and learning. So I think that's also something to consider. But I think, just fully blaming screens or social media, for example, isn't necessarily the route we want to 100% go down to. Rather, I would encourage taking more of a harm reduction approach. We know screens are here to stay. We can't escape them. And I don't think, we necessarily have to, but we have to find a way to better cohabitate and coexist with them as healthily and responsibly as possible.
So in an ideal world, how much exercise should young people, specifically teens, be getting daily? And when we're talking about exercise, I don't know if that means vigorous or not, but what should that look like for someone 12 to 17 in a given day?
Absolutely. So for kids 12 to 17, national recommendations are 60 minutes of moderate to vigorous physical activity per day. So that's more of that heart pumping physical activity. You're breathing a little bit harder. Maybe you're starting to get a little warmer or sweat. But that can look very different for different individuals, and how you choose to get that activity, can be whatever you find enjoyable. So we heard from some of the students previously, some of them are engaging in sports, some of them are just walking. That's great. Like, all movement counts. And so I think we want to move beyond that. If it's not happening in a gym or on a sports field, it doesn't count. We also want to be ensuring that we're getting multiple hours per day of just that light incidental activity, thinking about active transportation, so walking, wheeling, taking our bikes from point A to point B. And then we also want to be mindful of screen time, especially recreational screen time. And so national guidelines there are no more than 2 hours per day for recreational screen use for this age group.
2 hours per day. I imagine if you talked to any teenager, it would be a little bit higher than that.
Absolutely. I mean, recent stats show about 10.6 hours per day. So we're definitely exceeding. And so again, looking for ways that, we can more healthily and responsibly coexist with those, I think will get us a lot further than just trying to take this full-on abstinence approach. And rethinking really, in terms of how we move. What does this mean? It is, it's a complex problem, so it makes sense that it's equally going to require a complex solution to address multiple partners. And definitely, children and youth should be included in terms of, determining what's the best ways that they want to move their body, what they think would be helpful, and what measures can be put in place to help support, or mitigate the amount of screen time, especially from a social media perspective, only because with that comes a number of other exposures that we have less control over.
Oh, we'll leave it there. Thanks so much for your time this morning.
Thanks so much for having me. Take care.
That's Lee Vanderloo. She's the scientific director at Participaction. Time now is 8:24. You're listening to Information Radio here on CBC Radio 1. I'm Corey Funk, sitting in today for Marcy Marcusa. Well, next on the show, the Prime Minister delivered a live pre-budget speech to students in Ottawa Wednesday night. As part of it, Mark Carney announced some goals for Canada to increase non-U.S. exports that would be expected to generate billions of dollars in trade. Here's that portion of Carney's announcement.
Our partners around the world are already taking note of new Canadian ambition. Last month, we signed a historic free trade deal with Indonesia, the world's fourth largest country by population. We've just signed foundational agreements with the United Arab Emirates in AI, and with the EU in defense and trade, and with Germany in critical minerals. We're re-engaging with global giants India and China while we deepen our partnerships with our traditional allies. And to build on this momentum, I'm going to put it in context. Our goal for Canada is to double our non-U.S. exports over the course of the next decade, generating more than $300 billion more in trade, and that's new orders for Canadian resources, technologies, and expertise. Now, you spoke of protection and building, we move to empowering. Each of you in this room and in the overflow room, each of you is here to get an education that you need to go out and build the future that you want. To be empowered with a better shot at the life you want for yourself and your family. We will keep building a country where more people have more of those opportunities.
That was Prime Minister Mark Carney speaking in Ottawa Wednesday night. Lots of reaction this morning to Prime Minister Carney's pre-budget speech last night. Carney told a group of university students in Ottawa there will be difficult decisions, but they will be, quote, thoughtful, transparent, and fair, unquote. The CBC's Sarah Galashan caught up with Pedro Antunes, the chief economist of the Conference Board of Canada, and asked his thoughts on what he heard.
Well, I don't think there was a whole lot new. I think there's a few messages that we keep hearing about. I didn't hear a lot about productivity and enticing private investment and competing with the U.S. and the challenges that we have with the U.S. changes in their own tax regimes, corporate tax in particular. So I'm a little concerned about how much that the budget will, in the end, deal with this kind of productivity issue that we've been struggling with in Canada for years now.
Rosemary did point out his talk about trade deals and negotiations with countries outside of the United States, saying that he wants to double non-U.S. exports in the next decade. So putting a timeline on it. What did you make of that? I'm going to call it a promise.
Well, I think there's opportunity here. I think most of our trade has been directly with the U.S. because it's such a big economy. We have the same languages. We had an open border for all of these years. But we also have opportunity here with a lot of trade deals with a lot of other countries, including the European Union, South Korea. I think it was mentioned in Indonesia as well. So these are growth markets. These are markets where we don't have a lot of, we don't export an awful lot to. And so we can take advantage of that. It will be very, very difficult, though, to move quickly and to move enough so that we're not feeling the impact of our challenges with the U.S. economy, essentially. So we still do need to settle on some trade deal here with the U.S. That's really important.
Did you feel in that speech that you heard, he talked about sacrifices, difficult choices that'll have to be made in order to allow for spending, bold moves, is how he was describing it. And there are some, it does sound like there's going to be some significant spending, which leads me to the question of the deficit, because a lot has been said about a number that we don't know at the moment, but talk that it could be much higher than perhaps someone like yourself might feel comfortable with. What are you anticipating, and how are you going to feel come November 4th about deficit?
Yeah, I do think there's a claim to be made here for investing in productive assets that will drive future growth. It's kind of called the golden rule. If you're investing in things that are going to drive future growth, then it's fair, intergenerationally fair, and you're not just consuming at the expense of future generations. So I think it's a worthwhile thing to do. I do worry about the challenges, though. We keep saying that, we're the best in the G7, best among many OECD countries in terms of our fiscal situation, but we're comparing ourselves to a lot of countries that are in trouble. So the bottom line will be, are we going to be able to manage the debt financing costs, which are already more than doubled where they were just a few years ago? And to me, the real question here is both deficits, both on the current and on the capital account, are going to feed the cost of financing that debt, and that's really important.
That was Pedro Antunes, chief economist of the Conference Board of Canada, speaking with CBC's Sarah Galashan. The federal budget will be tabled in less than 2 weeks on November 4th. Well, we are coming up to news time here, but first, the host of Radio Noon, Marjorie Dowhouse, is in to tell us a little bit about what to expect on the call-in today. Hello.
Hi, Corey. Well, you've probably heard a lot about it because it's been in the headlines lately, notwithstanding clause. So today, Radio Noon, we're going to have more of like a notwithstanding clause 101. If you don't know much about it, what do you want to know about it? Why is it so controversial? Why are we talking about it these days? So call in, ask your questions. We're talking about the notwithstanding clause coming up on Radio Noon after 12:30.
And my basic understanding is that it allows provinces to kind of override the Charter of Rights.
Yes.
So it sounds really boring, notwithstanding clause, but it's actually super important.
It is super important to know. And a lot of people have asked, what does it mean?
Mm-hmm.
So call in and ask your questions because we're going to be taking a closer look at it.
Thank you very much, Marge.
Thanks, Corey.
You can leave a message on the listener line, 204-788-3797. That's 204-788-3797. Time now for your CBC Winnipeg News.
This is CBC News. Good morning. I'm Heather Wells in Winnipeg. At 8:30, it's -1. You'll want your mitts today. Becoming a mix of sun and clouds, a high of 7. Warmer tomorrow. The arrests of 2 men linked to a double homicide in Lake Winnipeg Cottage Country haven't eased the grief of the father of one of the victims. Sly Thiebert and Melissa Wilson were found dead in the arm of Victoria Beach in the early hours of June 20th. Glenn Thiebert says the arrests won't bring either of the victims back. He says his son was a commercial fisherman with the personality of a big teddy bear.
For the most part, he was a happy-go-lucky guy. Loved to joke around with people. He was unfiltered. If he had an argument with you, he'd tell you. But he wouldn't raise a hand to you.
RCMP arrested Nathaniel Moore Harrison in Nova Scotia and Mitchell Johansson in BC. Both are charged with second-degree murder. An early morning fire closed northbound Main at York for most of this morning. Fire crews were called to Bougie Restaurant just after 5:30 this morning. That is the former Earl's on Main. Flames and smoke were coming from the restaurant. No one was hurt and the fire was under control within an hour. The cause now is under investigation. Police have been directing traffic at Main and York because the traffic lights were out. The sister of a woman who was struck and killed by a police vehicle last year in a city park says she wants her sister to be remembered for the kind of person she was, not for the way she died. Tammy Bateman was struck by an unmarked police vehicle in September of 2024 at an encampment at Fort Rouge Park. Officers had been transporting another person back to that encampment. This week, Manitoba's Independent Investigation Unit says it's not recommending charges against the officer who was driving. Lori Bateman is Tammy's sister.
She was a kind-hearted person. She was a mother and a sister and a daughter, and she's going to be extremely, extremely missed. She's missed every day. Every time we think about or speak her name, there's tears to our eyes.
Lori says she and her family are angry with the decision not to recommend charges and will seek legal options to get justice for Tammy. A former American doctor says convincing others in the U.S. to make the move to Canada could be as simple as letting them know they're needed. Dr. Allison Carlton left Iowa and came to Canada with her wife in 2017 to work as a family doctor in Winnipeg, OSIS. She moved for personal and financial reasons after Donald Trump was elected president the first time. Carlton says she is willing to do whatever she needed. She was willing to do whatever she needed to find work in Manitoba, but says it was recruiters who made her feel wanted.
It came down more to what did I want? And I think that if we could get that message out there, that they would flock up here.
The province has recruited 6 physicians from the U.S. this year. They're either already working here or have accepted positions. 27 other doctors are still being recruited. CBC News has learned 1 in 4 positions within the wildfire division were vacant when wildfire season started this past May. A further 64 seasonal fire ranger positions also had not been filled. That's according to information obtained through the Freedom of Information laws. The documents also show when wildfires began spreading across the province the week of May 12th, several key fire management positions were vacant. Natural Resources Minister Ian Bushy says they are dedicated to recruiting for next season, so there are no vacancies.
The ultimate goal is to have them all filled. And really that's the goal, and that's the long-term goal, and also it's the short-term goal. We all should be looking to improve that each and every day.
The Union for Fire Rangers says recruitment is difficult because Manitoba pays less than other provinces. The owner of a small makeup company in Salmon Arm, BC, has signed a contract with the Winnipeg Blue Bombers. Miss Mac Cosmetics will be supplying Bomber players and fans with non-toxic eye black that can also be used as face paint and makeup. Owner Missy McIntosh says she initially designed it for her 14-year-old son.
I wouldn't actually let Evan wear eye black for many years because I knew the ingredients that were in them. I was like, hey, Evan, do you want to create an eye black? Essentially, it's like a black depth lipstick. We have the manufacturing. And he's like, yeah, let's do it.
Now, McIntosh has signed the first female-owned cosmetics contract with a Canadian men's sporting organization. The gameplay eye black, already worn by Bomber players, is going to be unveiled to fans at the Grey Cup Festival in Winnipeg next month. You can find more news updated throughout the day. All you have to do is head to cbc.ca/Manitoba.
Thank you very much, Heather.
Thank you.
That's Heather Wells at our CBC News desk. We just got an update now from the city. All lanes on Main Street are now open, but the traffic signals at Main and York are still out, so police are on scene directing traffic. As well, eastbound South Perimeter, there's a multi-vehicle collision by the bridge on St. Mary's that takes you from St. Mary, between St. Mary and Pembina there, so heads up there. Abby, what's going on with the weather?
Yeah, we're looking at a crisp day. It's more like a typical fall-day sunshine in the south, lingering clouds up north, and it's going to stay mainly below freezing later tonight in a lot of the regions. We're around -1 and -5 in the city, warming up to 8 degrees today, and up north we're going to see 4 to 7 degrees up north. So stay warm, people.
Thanks to everyone who helped put together today's show. Zubina Ahmed, Sofia Peralta Baron, Jenna Badasso, of course, Abby Adeyemi, Darren Morash, and our on-air team, as well our news team, Heather Wells, Aaron Broman, and Megan Ketchison, and our producers, Leif Larson and Nelly Gonzalez. I'm Corey Funk, sitting in today for Marcia Marcusa. Thanks for tuning in. The Current is next.